The Milwaukee Brewers will likely increase the number of pitchers on their roster for the National League Championship Series. That series gets underway Friday evening at Miller Park. Game time is 7 p.m. Game 2 will be on Saturday at 3, also at Miller Park. Wednesday, rain likely, high of 73 tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance of rain, low of 41. Thursday, partly sunny, 46 degrees. Friday, partly sunny and 45. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, happy Hump Day. Happy Marquette University Law School polling day to you, my little buddy.
Crudy, happy Hump Day to you. I like to think of it as pole dancing day.
Pole dancing day.
Yeah, we're going to pole dance with Charles Franklin.
In the happy hour, indeed, our good friend Charles Franklin will be in the happy hour. That's his regular spot, when there is a new Marquette University Law School poll. Also got Sarah Godlewski, the Dem Treasurer candidate, coming in studio on Brady. I always have to think, is she coming on the studio? No, in the studio on Brady.
Yeah.
At 3:30 today. And Dom, let's jump right into the polling. I think we are right to do so. It's a little depressing, my buddy.
Come on. You called it, Crudy. I'll give you credit on this one.
I did call this.
It's within the margin.
Within the margin, hell, Scott Walker in the first poll that we have seen since Tony Evers won the primary on the Democratic side. First polling I've seen where Scott Walker is ahead amongst likely voters. Dom, 47-46. What the?
Crudy, I do have an answer for you. You want to hear it? You want to hear it?
Sure.
The last poll in September where Tony Evers led Scott Walker, and I believe it was outside the margin of error during that poll. Well, it's all about the sampling, right, Crute? In the September 18th poll that Marquette University did, 45% polled were Republicans, 46% were Democrat, and 8% were independent.
At which time I asked Charles Franklin, why does he keep oversampling Republicans?
In the most recent polling, Crudy, 47% Republican, 44% Democrat, and 8% again independent. My math says that's a 4-point swing from a +1 Dem to -3 Dem, and perhaps that's why we see such a difference.
Or maybe we've seen, a small movement in the forest, Dom. Maybe we are seeing a shift in the electorate, especially amongst the independent voters. Just a month ago, Dom, Tony Evers was winning independents by 20 points. In this newest polling, my understanding, by 6, 46-40. Tony is losing the middle ground. Apparently too lefty for him, Dom. I'm not sure what exactly. Is it the tax and spend policies? That's what the ads would tell you, right? Scott Walker, or at least his supporters, running lots of ads against Tony.
Well, I would say this. Dems, progressive, those who are anti-Walker, right? If you're just anti-Walker, take this. Just to say, man, you got to work a little bit harder. There is nothing guaranteed. This is, as I have said, Crudy, it's going to be a close race. And for the Republicans, for those who think that, Governor Walker now has it made, hell, don't do a thing. Just relax. Your guys got it.
I'm not sure if we're influencing enough people to trick them, Dom, or whatever you're trying to do over there. A few more of the polling numbers out today. Tammy Baldwin still with a commanding lead. Does that seem incongruent. Tammy Baldwin up 53-43, up 10 points over Leah Vukmer, your girl, Dom. But how can Scott Walker be winning by one? Well, within the margin of error, effectively a statistical tie, but it makes for a nice, compelling headline if you're the Walker administration. And Tammy Baldwin be winning by 10, Dom.
Now, I did not see. Does Tammy
explain it to me?
I cannot explain it. That's why we have the pollster himself, Charles Franklin, coming in the happy hour at 5 o'clock. Was the gap between Leah Vukmir and Senator Baldwin, do you know from last polling?
11-10, I believe.
11-10.
So nearly equitable. She had
so pretty much
double-digit lead in the last poll.
Gotcha. All right. That's very interesting.
We've seen a shifting, especially of independent voters, at least in the Tony Evers Scott Walker race. And right now, according to likely voters polled by Charles Franklin and the Marquette University Law School team, Scott Walker winning in the polls 47-46. Tammy's doing okay. Now, this other one, the Attorney General race, Dom, and there was some big breaking news, a press conference today. We'll talk about that as well. But Brad Schimmel, the hack, the partisan, perhaps in the editorial pages I've read, Dom, the worst Attorney General in the state of Wisconsin's history.
Worst ever in all of mankind, I would submit.
Now, Schimmel is winning in the current polling by 4 over Josh Kaul. My understanding, though, Dom, that is a closing of the differential. And we all know Josh Kaul less recognizable, at least by name. Brad Schimmel has been the Attorney General the last 4 years, although what the hell he does at that job, I'm not exactly sure.
Well, come on, you know what he does. I know what he does. You know what he does. Everybody knows what Brad Schimmel does. He kicks ass every day.
Oh, I stepped on your punchline, buddy. My bad.
Come on.
Anyway, still troubling in that Josh Kaul trails the perhaps worst Attorney General in Wisconsin history.
Bill Glauber in the Journal Sentinel has a write-up on it. As you mentioned, Crudy, Josh Kaul 47. Schimmel 47, Kaul 43, within the margin of error. And again, as you mentioned, that is a closing from the last polling. So,
Dom,
Kaul's catching up.
I always figured you're our margin of error.
Yeah. Give me a big breath.
Here are a few more, and then we'll move on to the headlines of the day, Dom. Donald Trump approval rating in the state of Wisconsin. It is underwater, like much of the state of Wisconsin. Donald Trump, 46% approval rating. That seems incredibly high to me.
Yeah, it does.
51% disapproval rating. Right now, Trump -5, but that seems way too close, Dom. I can't imagine that Donald Trump has a 46% approval rating in the state of Wisconsin. Is that true? How could that be true?
Well, when you oversample Republicans, Crudy, you're probably going to get a leaning number. I'm just saying.
Some people say Charles might have oversampled Republicans. It's not even me saying it. I'm glad you're taking up the mantle for a change. Here's another one where you know it's got to be wrong, Tom. Scotty Wanker, 48% approve, 47% disapprove.
Oh, come on.
+1. I find that hard to believe as well.
Vukmir viewed favorably by 30% and unfavorably by 43%. She's upside down 13. Damn.
Lucky 13, Leah.
Not a lot of people like her. I don't think Republicans even like her very much.
Well, buddy, her campaign has been mostly about lying and her tone mostly unhinged. But let's jump into a Craig Gilbert, Patrick Marley piece at the Journal Sentinel, published this morning. As GOP outspends Democrats on TV in race for Wisconsin governor, outside groups play an outsized role. You know, Scott Walker, very concerned about the outside spending in this race, Dom. Does he have reason to fret? Well, let's jump in. Republicans have outspent Democrats by almost 2-1 on broadcast TV in a fierce general election fight for governor between GOP incumbent Scott Walker and Democratic challenger Tony Evers. About 2/3 of that spending has come from outside groups, which are playing an unusually big part in the advertising wars in this race, according to data provided to the Journal Sentinel by the ad tracking firm Cantar Media, CMAG. One group set up by Democratic Governors Association is responsible for 3/4 of the broadcast TV spending on behalf of Evers, spending about $3.5 million since the August 14th primary.
Ooh.
Now, Dom, no single Republican group has spent that much, but a combination of GOP groups has spent $5.4 million on broadcast TV in the race. The most active GOP group is an arm of the state's largest business lobbying group, Dom, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce,
of course,
which has spent more than $2.6 million since mid-August. Scott Walker out advocating for the effective 0% for manufacturers and agribusiness.
They love that.
People today.
They love that.
Could it be the air support he's getting from WMC, Dom?
Possibly. Crudy, in all, outside spending from groups other than the candidates accounts for more than $9 million of the roughly $14 million in broadcast ads in the race since the primaries, making it a bigger factor than it was in the 2014 race for governor and in most other contests for governor this year. This may reflect the sheer competitiveness of the Wisconsin race, as well as political factors on both sides. Evers, the state school superintendent, emerged from a large primary field in August without much money and with little fundraising experience. Democrats needed an organization ready to hit the airwaves against Walker. On the GOP side, Crute, Walker is much better funded than Evers, but the outside Republicans,
even with the outside money, Dom?
He's so scared and concerned about the outside money. But the outside Republican spending reflects the urgency and concern the party and its allies have about the Walker race, with the two-term governor trailing Evers in recent public polls. Of course, Walker up 1 point today.
Dom, here at the bottom of the piece, beyond what the groups are doing, Walker as a candidate has outspent Evers by a margin of about 4-1. The governor's campaign has spent about $3.8 million on broadcast TV, some of it in coordination with the state GOP. Used to be illegal, but Scott Walker changed all that.
Those were the bad old days.
Dominic Tony Evers has spent about $900,000. The total GOP spending by outside groups, the Republican Party, and Walker on broadcast TV since the middle of August is an estimated $9.2 million compared to the $4.8 million for Democratic groups and Evers. And the we talked about where the advertising figures came from, Dom. Here's my question. I have seen a few messages sent my way, a few comments, that the Evers ads aren't strong. I want to get your opinion. What do you think about the Evers ads? I see them less frequently than the Walker supportive ads.
Certainly.
Or the accusatory Tony Evers watches porn every night with his teacher friend sort of ads. Or Tony Evers is going to raise your taxes sort of ads. But the responses, I've had a few good friends and a few audience members, not that you're not friends of mine, but I'd call you more friendly acquaintances. But I've had people express, lay people that I wouldn't perceive to be incredibly political, saying, come on, Tony, you got to have a stronger message. You got to fight back.
Honestly, Crudy, I have not really registered a whole lot of the Evers ads, and when Walker comes on, I just kind of tune them out, man. Heaven forbid anybody have to want to watch, the morning news on any of the regular broadcast television stations, because, of course, we are being bombarded, and there's just so much. Ultimately, dude, I just tune them out. So I really have no opinion. I guess I would say this. None of the ads from any of the candidates have particularly grabbed me. So, but, that's just one guy's opinion.
Now, Phil Anderson, amongst likely voters, Libertarian Phil Anderson, drawing about 5% of the vote, undecided in the gubernatorial race, Dom, at least according to today's likely voter, 1% undecided.
Yeah, not very high.
Well, you wonder how committed people are to their candidates. I wonder how committed our audience is to joining us on the phones for this fine broadcast. 844-967-2789. Once again, 844-96-PARTY. And Sarah Godlewski, the Dem candidate for Wisconsin Treasurer, joins us in studio at 3:30 today. Once again, Charles Franklin goes inside the Marquette University Law School polling numbers with us in the happy hour. And your calls, your tweets, your text, always welcome here. We're Dom and Crute. The margin of error. More of us on the other side.
The biggest fear that I think a lot of our supporters have is the outside money.
Connect the dots, la 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 la. Connect the dots, la 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 la.
The irony is a little rich here these days.
Hi, my name is Shantae, your local Hyatt pharmacist. With more than 10 locations here in the Milwaukee area, we're here to simplify your lives one script at a time. With free delivery to your home or work, where all your medications are brought together in one convenient dosage packaged, individualized to your daily medication regimen. We set up in-house calls with the licensed pharmacist to assist in medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit us at our website, HAYATRX.com.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming on the YouTube and Facebook pages, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and the party line always open at 844-967-2789.
Dom, let's go to the phones in our fair audience. What are you thinking today? Scott Walker, 47-46, the lead in the Marquette University Law School polling. Dom says, oversample Republicans. What do you say, audience? 844-967-2789.
Gary, you are up. Thanks for calling. What do you think?
Hey, Gary.
Dom and Mike, thank you so much for taking my call. I want to, first of all, Republicans poll very poorly because there's a dirty little secret, and I'm going to tell you guys, is a lot of times we don't tell the truth because we don't want to be ahead. Because if we're
Gary,
ahead,
you think we don't know that Republicans lie?
Thank you. I think we got a promo here.
You got me. Okay. All right. Now, that's the truth. We polled poorly. But going back to what I talked to you guys a couple days ago, when I mentioned about a gal named Christine Fair, the professor from Georgetown University, and I was talking about how the gals were going to laugh and castrate them and throw their carcasses. Did you ever get a chance to look that up?
Yeah, we did. I did see that was a professor. Now, that day you had mentioned that she was an attorney for Dr. Ford. Of course, that wasn't. She was, yeah, but she is some professor who went off on Twitter.
You guys weren't listening.
I can pull the tape, man. But yes, I found the tweet. Yes.
Okay. Well, the thing is, I don't want your listeners to think I'm some right-wing wacko. I got to come across legitimate, right?
Well, Gary, people draw their own conclusions.
No.
And who are we to dissuade them, sir?
No, but here's the thing. Certainly, Gary, we as we mentioned then, and we did find the tweet talking about castrating their dead bodies or something along those lines. Certainly not approve of that. But, we as lefties or middle or independents or whatever, we're not represented by everybody out there who claims to have the same political leaning as I do, nor does Alex Jones perhaps speak for you or any of the other crazies on the right. Is that a fair statement?
I speak for all patients.
Like Leah Vukmer speaks for all patients because she's a nurse.
There was another one on the news today. She's a teacher, a special ed teacher out of Minnesota. Her Twitter name is Spooky Spam, and she went out there and said, "Hey, who's going to help us out and go kill Kavanaugh?" Well, I went on Twitter today, and her page is taken off. So,
sure.
There are some crazy people.
Hey, how about that one guy who became president who talked about grabbing women by the You got a problem with that?
I know. Hey.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man. So while I'm down, 100%. I think we got to be critical and try to keep the the conversation above a terrible level. Let's not be all holier than thou. Republicans have embraced one of the nastiest human beings who says the worst, most vile thing about other people ever. I mean, this guy made a name for himself calling everybody else names. So while he may not be calling for their deaths, which I would have even more of a problem with, the guy's an ass. You've embraced him, Gary, so just don't get too sensitive about it.
I don't embrace him.
Did you vote for him?
Yes, I did.
All right, well, where do you go, man? Come on, man. I mean, what are you saying? You can't say I vote for the policy but not the guy. You get both, and he is a terrible person, Gary.
He has his issues.
Well, you think? Gary, do you think he perpetuated fraud upon the American people by not paying his taxes? Because that's another huge issue, man. $500 million, they got tax returns.
He's in the middle of being audited.
What?
All right, come on. I'm not standing up for him. Come on, guys. You know me. You talked to me for the last month on the air. You give me plenty of time, and then the thing is, I'm good for ratings because I'm hated for the next hour. They still talk about.
No, Gary. Yesterday, a guy said you're very polite, but Gary's no better than Ron Johnson. And when he comes on, I turn off the radio. You cost us at least one listener yesterday.
No, but I'm good for ratings. Come on, man. They talk about me for 2 hours afterwards, and I listen. And, once in a while, you guys got to stick up for me and say, hey, we're taking Gary off for a fish fry.
All right, Gary, you make it down to Brady Street. We'll go up the street for a beer. We'll start there, man.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates. We take all comers, and we got a fine guest who joins us next live in the Brady Street studio. She is Sarah Godlewski. She is a Democrat running for state treasurer. Coming up later in the big show, Charles Franklin, pollster, Marquette University Law School poll in the happy hour. More of us, more of you on the phones as well. 844-967-2789.
Today, I'm going to be a much nicer president.
Sounds nice. It's not nice. It's not good.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
Gary from Sussex.
I've been slapped a couple times for trying to go a little bit farther than someone wants to go. And I stopped, okay? We've all done stupid things. The fact is, if I was running for the Supreme Court and some girl came back 58 years ago when I was, or 50 years ago when I was in high school, and to keep me from becoming a Supreme Court justice for something I did 50 years ago when I was stupid, this isn't right. He didn't rape her.
Our friend Jean from Eau Claire. It's been a while. Jeannie, I'm going to get a woman's perspective. What do you think?
Yeah!
That is the most despicable thing that I have ever heard, and it's men like him that hurt women every gall darn day, and we're not going to get a handle on this till we start dealing with these issues.
Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
It's hard to dream when you're fighting for 15. This is Pizza Box Mike for Wisconsin's Resistance Radio. Check out fightfor15.org to get involved in the fight for 15.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. It's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on them anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
I'm jumping in with my clothes on.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
5 9, your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Here are your headlines for October 10th. The chairman of the Democratic National Committee was in Milwaukee over the weekend to support Democrats running for office, including Tony Evers, and to get a look at the new Pfizer Forum. Tom Perez is the person who will decide where Democrats hold their national convention in 2020. Milwaukee is one of 3 finalists to get the convention. Houston and Miami Beach are the other 2 cities. Republicans have outspent Democrats 2-1 on broadcast television in Wisconsin's governor race. The majority of that money has come from outside groups. Candidate for Governor Tony Evers wants to lower drug prices by creating a new state board that would review price hikes and impose fines on drug makers for excessive price increases. And the Milwaukee School Board has voted to make the interim superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools the permanent superintendent. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
I don't know if you know the Devil's Advocates, but they are kind of a big deal.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest live in the Brady Street studio. She is Sarah Godlewski. She's a Democrat running for state treasurer. We welcome her back. Sarah, first time in studio. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
Thanks, Kurt. It's great to be here with you and Dom.
Yeah, thank you for coming out.
Sarah, before we jump into the meat of the interview, got to mention Marquette University Law School polling out today. I'm a little concerned, Sarah. I see a closing of the top of the ticket race, and I didn't see any specific polling on the the state treasurer's race. Mm-hmm. But this recent polling, this today polling, seems to indicate this is going to be very, very close, top to bottom of the ticket. Sarah, is there reason for Democrats to be concerned?
I mean, we all saw last week how the enthusiasm from the Republican side really gained traction after everything that was going with the Kavanaugh hearings. And it's interesting because we're hearing very similar things with our race. I mean, our internal poll that we've gotten feedback on is very similar. I mean, this is, I think, neck and neck. So when people talk about this blue wave, the reality is that I don't think it's not going to be a blue wave unless we really work for it.
Now, Sarah, we don't have the benefit of seeing any polling on the state treasurer race. How are you doing in terms of name recognition on the internal polling? Are you getting the word out? Have people heard of Sarah Godlewski?
Well, I will say we hit a big milestone yesterday in the campaign. We have traveled 25,000 miles across the state of Wisconsin. So to kind of every corner. But that being said, I mean, I'm a first-time candidate, and the state treasurer is lower on the ballot. And so we're doing everything we can to increase our name recognition, but that's always a struggle.
And Sarah, you've sort of brought some pizzazz, at least to the candidacy. We've got a friend of ours that just called in recently. Wisco Paul saw you at the DPW.
Yeah.
Quite impressed with your speech. Sarah, it's almost like you are passionate about the job you're seeking, unlike the Republicans historically that want to eliminate the position of state treasurer.
Well, it's so funny you say that because my opponent actually voted to remove the office because, as we've seen, checks and balances are so overrated. I mean, who needs that?
No, we just consolidate power, in the governor, and,
Totally.
and they'll rule by fiat.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that sounds like a great idea.
I mean, it's like the fox watching the hen house kind of thing, that's fine in Wisconsin. It's, no big deal. Or watching over a $1.2 billion trust fund. So, we've been really, I think part of this campaign has been educating people about this role and what's at stake, because it's really my belief that the problem with the treasurer's office has not been the position itself. If you look at the position, it's this bully pulpit, and the Constitution talks about it to be this kind of chief financial officer. It's more been the person in the office, not the position. Heaven forbid you actually have somebody that is your state treasurer that actually has extensive financial experience. Like, what a concept. Who knew? And so I really think that's been part of the problem, is we've just been electing people that, do not have like accounting experience, or have not invested, or have not worked in large companies or with government agencies. And I hope that changes with this election.
Sarah, let's talk about some of the current economic policies in the state of Wisconsin. Scott Walker out today advocating once again for the preservation of the manufacturing and agribusiness tax credits. Now, the tax credits mean effectively the manufacturers and agribusiness interests pay, 0 or 0.4%. The working stiff, the minimum wage guy, he's paying up to 7.5% of his hourly wage in taxation in the state of Wisconsin. But these profitable manufacturing interests, they don't pay anything in taxes, or nearly effectively anything. Got to ask you, it feels to me like we're blowing the budget for the benefit of millionaires and billionaires. I thought I saw the statistic. 11 individual taxpayers got a $22 million savings from this one tax credit. Sarah, is this sustainable? And do you believe Scott Walker when he says this is the reason for the strong growth in the state of Wisconsin?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, because we shouldn't be helping just the 1%. We should be really looking at policies that help everybody. I mean, we've seen firsthand how trickle-down economics does not work. What I find fascinating is, this office doesn't have anything to do with taxation, which is one of the reasons why it should be a good fiscal watchdog, because it doesn't tell you how you should account for your money, how you should spend for your money, how it should tax you. That's why it's this independent fiscal officer. But that being said, I think what's really exciting about this position is that it can really look at other ways in which we can help everybody. So whether it's with the Common School Fund, or looking at ways to help small businesses. So but I agree with you. The whole just giving these billionaires tax cuts are not really helping anybody.
Sarah, I've certainly known the struggles of being a small business person here in the state of Wisconsin. I believe we're 50th in the nation in entrepreneurship under the current Republican leadership. Sarah, how can we encourage others to go out there and take a risk and start a small business? Historically, that's where many of the new jobs come from.
Well, so it's fascinating. I mean, if you look at it, we're 50th for startups, we're 47th for innovation, I think we're 48th for entrepreneurship. Now, when you look at one of the biggest barriers to entry and why that is, it's because they can't find access to capital. I mean, I don't know, Crute, if you ever had this problem, but a lot of Wisconsinites I talk about, they literally have to put it on their credit card. I mean,
I got a second mortgage on my kidney right now.
Right. Awesome. See, another case in point.
Good thing it's not on your liver. It wouldn't be worth much.
Only had a couple of those, right? Totally. So it's just, honestly, it's crazy to think that, business owners, in order to get ahead, they have to try to figure out how they're going to finance it. I mean, literally, the amount of money that Silicon Valley gets in one day is how much Wisconsin gets in an entire year. And so rather than giving, $4.5 billion to Foxconn, imagine if we actually gave that money to 72 counties to invest in small businesses or startups. I mean, that's really the future, whether you look at there's all sorts of examples across the state about these startup companies. I mean, Jam from Eau Claire, Zach Homestead, built this literally a company out of his garage that's now worth millions of dollars and literally transformed the entire community of Eau Claire. Or Judy with Epic. I mean, she also started that basically in like her backyard, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And so if we invested actually in Wisconsinites rather than foreign companies, we would see those economic returns. It would be amazing.
Yeah, but if that money was spread out amongst the counties and distributed to small individual startup companies, because of course most of the job growth is created by startups.
Exactly.
That's what drives job growth, and certainly lacking that here in the state of Wisconsin. Well, guys like Governor Walker and their administration, they rely solely on these legacy type companies, and perhaps not so much Foxconn in that it's newer technologies with phone screens and whatnot, but even Kimberly-Clark. But if we distribute that out, well, how many of those people are going to turn around and give money back to the Republicans as donations? Because you got to imagine with Governor Scott Walker, the way he did it with the mining interests, the way he did it with the lead paint manufacturers, I assume that there's also some comeuppance for money for him to give it to one company like Foxconn. Sarah Godlewski, a Democratic candidate for state treasurer, in the studio with us. Why are you running for this position, and what is your goal with this position? I know the Republicans wanted to get rid of it. Why do you seek it, and why is it important?
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys are going to find this hard to believe, but I wasn't a little girl drawing dollar signs and safety deposit boxes talking about how I want to be state treasurer when I grow up. But, when you see something, right, you got to say something. And the fact that this office, I think, just has such potential, but we really haven't put somebody in this office that has the financial experience to do it. So we're really talking about three things on the trail. I mean, one is that this office should be your fiscal watchdog. I mean, it has the ability to review financial transactions that involve your tax dollars. So whether it's things like Foxconn or, we saw, 2 weeks ago with the Department of Transportation missing $47 million from the budget? I mean, where is that going? That's our tax dollars.
Is that a problem, Sarah? Losing $47 million? Is that problematic?
No problem. Or what was it? What was it last week? The Milwaukee Sentinel talked about the Medicaid. I think they were charging people twice, like dead people. I mean, this is crazy that we're dealing with this stuff. I mean, every day I feel like there's something new that we're learning with lack of accountability and transparency. And I know, Mike, we've even talked about this before. I mean, we don't even have basic accepted accounting practices in this state. And so really knowing our level of debt is this kind of like black box. And so I worry about that every single day.
Sarah, just for the record, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I thought Scott Walker solved Wisconsin's debt problem. You mean we have debt? I thought we were a debt-free state, Sarah. Am I wrong?
I mean, so not to be like a financial nerd.
Oh, please, get into it.
But,
nerd away.
I mean, our accounting system today, we're just doing what's just called cash accounting. So it doesn't really look at the entire financial health of the state. And so I think if we actually would use what's called generally accepted accounting practices, GAAP, that would potentially show a different situation as far as what our debt levels could be, because it takes in a lot of different factors that today we're not really looking at. And that worries me.
Do you think we should factor in the $4.5 billion and counting that we're given to Foxconn? Should that factor into the math, the future expenditures of the state of Wisconsin that Scott Walker signed away on a cocktail napkin? Or should we just cash accounting and say, I got a buck in my pocket, let's go to the bar?
You hit it. I mean, that's exactly why this is a problem, is we're not taking all of our debts into account. I mean, that's case in point. So we should be looking at all of that. And we're not right now.
Sarah, my understanding, state of Wisconsin, over $14 billion in debt relative to a budget of about $76 billion per biennium. I would point out, while Scott Walker's been the governor, that's grown from like $69 billion up to $76 billion. The rate of inflation hasn't been that great over the last 7 years. Yeah. These Republicans, well, they might not tax as much, but they're forcing Wisconsinites to accept taxes in a variety of fashions, but they're certainly spending like drunken sailors. The road bonding in particular, Sarah, we have seen bonding just for the roads go up 70% under Scott Walker.
Yeah, well, and I think the other point is this kind of, what kind of precedent are we setting? So the corporate handouts that you're talking about, I mean, whether it's for Foxconn or with Kimberly-Clark or whatever kind of companies, I mean, imagine the money that we could be spending, to your point, in small businesses or in startups. That's more oftentimes even like in a recession proof when you give money to these startups and you have these communities that are starting new businesses, that give new jobs, and just investing all of it in different corners isn't really benefiting the rest of the state.
Well, let's talk specifically about Kimberly-Clark. Our friends at One Wisconsin Now, Sarah, pointed out they pulled the taxes. Kimberly-Clark has not paid state taxes, I correct myself, $1 in state taxes over the last 4 reported calendar years, yet the governor of the state of Wisconsin is going to pull the Senate into extraordinary session in a lame duck to offer a corporation $100 million they didn't exactly ask for, and they don't pay taxes currently. Sarah, the incentive being offered reflects the Foxconn deal, which is 2.5 times the normalized incentive. Normally, we give 7 cents on the wage dollar. He's proposing 17 cents on the wage dollar. Well, Sarah, the maximum Wisconsin tax is like 7.5%. If we incentivize the employees or the corporation to pay them by 17%, we collect back a maximum of 7.5%, and the corporation pays no taxes. You can give those incentives into infinity, will never get paid back.
Well, and to think that the Foxconn deal was the largest incentive package from any state, period. I mean, that's insane. And we don't have that kind of money, quite frankly, to be giving out. We should be looking at it in ways of this entire picture and how we're spending on, giving these corporate handouts versus public ed. I mean, the proportion in how we're spending money is just absolutely crazy.
I realize the state treasurer doesn't get to control everything, but
and taxation, for the record, taxation is definitely not one of them. So,
well, we'll hold the Department of Revenue accountable for that part. Sarah Godlewski, she's a Democrat. She is a candidate for state treasurer. It's like she likes math or something, Dom.
It's amazing.
So foreign to us.
It's a little refreshing. Can you stick around for a little bit, Sarah?
I'd love to. I'd love to.
Come back with us. We are the Devil's Advocates. More on Real Resistance Radio. We'll come back with Sarah Godlewski, a fine Dem running for state treasurer.
They'd like to take me out for a lot of reasons far bigger than just this election.
They projected a $1 billion surplus, and it turns out to be a deficit of $2.2 billion.
Where's the money? Ah! Ah! Yeah, you like that? That feel good? That feel good?
We don't need to imagine the challenges our state faces. We live them every day. This is former State Representative Mandela Barnes. I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. And whether it's more access to affordable health care, or clean water, or better jobs, or wanting the best schools for our kids, there's only one candidate for governor who will get results: Tony Evers. That's what Tony's done as a teacher and as state superintendent of public schools. I've seen Tony's character and his passion to do what's right for kids. I've seen Tony Evers listen to the concerns and problems of people around the state, and I've worked with him to find solutions to those problems. Isn't that what we need? 8 years is enough of Scott Walker and his failed politics of division. We need a governor who cares about all of us. We need a governor who's concerned about the next generation, not just the next election. It's time for a change. That's why Tony for Wisconsin paid for this ad.
Listen to the words of the Reverend Willie Briscoe.
Scripture tells us in Luke 17:3 and 4, if your brother or sister sins against you, rebuke them, and if they repent, forgive them. Those words are so important to our community because we know that men and women who have served time in jail must be given an opportunity to rebuild their lives. That's why we should be thankful that our Senator, Tammy Baldwin, had sponsored the Ban the Box bill, so when someone seeks a job, they do not have to check a box that says they've been in jail on their initial job application, so they can be judged on their character. And the best way for us to thank Tammy Baldwin is to get out and vote, because sitting on the sidelines is not an option if we care about our community.
I'm Tammy Baldwin, candidate for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Tammy Baldwin for Senate.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Thank you for listening. If you miss any of this fine program, you can go to the website, download and listen to podcasts and interviews at realresistanceradio.com.
Dominic, we refuse to do math. That's why we got a fine guest live in the Brady Street studios who wants to be state treasurer. She's a Democrat. She is Sarah Godlewski, and she's bringing some pizzazz back to the state treasurer's position. At least she will if elected. Sarah, I got to tell you, I never took, this might shock you, any accounting class in my life. And really didn't even take any marketing or business classes in college. Just kind of gone out there and done it School of Hard Knocks. But I got to ask you, the markets are off like 830 points today, a big drop in the Dow.
Yeah.
And first and foremost, I cashed out after Trump got elected, so this does not affect me. But Sarah, you mentioned it off air.
Yeah.
These are supposed to be the good times. And when we see a little trimmer in the markets, we realize there's been a tremendous run-up. We've seen nothing but good times, but the state of Wisconsin is not really stocking away a substantial amount for a rainy day. We keep giving away every minuscule surplus that hits Scott Walker's desk. He's got to give it back as a tax cut. What happens when the markets eventually tumble for more than a day or two? What happens when we see a correction or a recession? Is the state of Wisconsin prepared for that?
I mean, I think that's a really good question, and something that I'm honestly trying to get my head wrapped around, because to your point, I saw the pop up that said that the market was going down, and kind of looking at it. I mean, we haven't had a recession in over 10 years.
Yeah,
Last
we're due.
one was 2008. So we're a 10-year, and we're due for the market to kind of burn off, as you've talked about, and making sure that we have effective rainy day funds and we're prepared with our treasury and bond ratings is critical. And I think that these are all things that we have to be asking about, because I don't know how resilient we really are at the end of the day.
Well, Sarah, one of the rude hosts interrupted you before you were explaining accounting principles. I don't recall which host it was, but now seems like an opportune time. You were mentioning lack of transparency financially here in the state of Wisconsin. Could you expand upon that point, please?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that if you look at this office, I mean, it is a built-in check and balance in our governance structure. But yet this office has never actually served in that role. And I think it's more about the person than the position. Because this role, as I mentioned, it doesn't collect your taxes. It doesn't tax you. It doesn't spend. But yet it also does the accounting. I mean, literally all of these functions are happening under the same roof. There's no internal control. And this office actually is the built internal control to say, did you spend my tax dollars the way that you could? I mean, I don't know, like if either of you have been involved in nonprofits or on corporate boards, but they always do like a financial annual report. They talk about, all right, what did you get for that money? Where'd that money go and what did you get? I mean, we have a lot of like complicated financial reports, but nothing that really talks to citizens about what they got for their tax dollars. And I think we need to be better about that and providing that check and balance and accountability and transparency. But I will tell you, I think the other thing that worries me that we're not doing in the state of Wisconsin is really being a fiscal advocate. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember when the whole Wells Fargo situation happened. Mm-hmm. Remember, they're kicking people off of loans. They're raising interest rates. Well, literally, state treasurers around the country were saying, you can't do that to our people. And they literally fined them. They stopped state funding with Wells Fargo if they had these agreements. And guess what we did in the state of Wisconsin?
Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Those thousands of people that were impacted, we did nothing. And again, not to be a financial nerd, I think this is going to be the theme of this segment, is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the federal agency that provides protections against big banks or predatory lending. They're being crushed by the Trump administration. So if we don't have somebody being an advocate at the state level, who's going to be advocating for these people? Nobody. And that is something that just honestly keeps me up at night.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is Sarah Godlewski. She's a Democrat, and she's running for Wisconsin State Treasurer. Sarah, you've said it a couple of times. It's not necessarily the position, but the person.
Yeah.
Tell us about Sarah. What's your background been? How did you get your expertise on numbers, and what skills will you bring to this position?
Yeah, so I kind of started my financial, career doing microfinance in rural India, where I saw kind of firsthand how microlending transformed all of these communities. I then moved on and worked with corporations and actually large government agencies. So I was at the Pentagon for a little under a decade during the height of the Iraqi war. And I'm proud to say we kind of cut through some red tape. We changed the way that some things were done and saved taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. And today I run a socially responsible investment firm. We invest in early stage socially responsible businesses. I got sick of people telling me that, you know what, Sarah, you can't do good things for the world and make a sound financial return. And we're proving them wrong. You actually can do things like renewable energy and have good financial investment from that. And so I think we need to kind of think about these more as mutual agreements. So,
Sarah, do you ever invest in, some less than responsible sorts? Some might call them hoodlums or penal delinquent sorts.
I love it. Well, I'm always looking for a side project. So you never know. You never know.
And Sarah, tell us a little bit more about you personally. If you're a candidate, unfortunately, you got to share a few details. Husband, kids, dogs. What makes you tick?
Yeah. So just even a little bit about me. I mean, I'm a fifth generation Wisconsinite. And so I was born and raised out on the west side of the state in Eau Claire. And my parents were public school teachers, so, union proud there. And now we live in Madison. That's where we run our business. My husband, Max, is a super supporter and also has been involved in kind of the finance and actual renewable energy industry for a long time. And we have our great rescue dog, Tanner. So if we're not on the campaign trail, we're trying to hike or do something outside. So that's kind of some of the stuff we're doing.
Sarah, these last 27, 28 days are going to go by very rapidly.
Oh, my gosh,
I assume you could use a little help getting the word out about your campaign. If people want to get involved with your campaign, Sarah Godlewski, help them find the website.
Yeah, it's www.sarah.wisconsin.com. So sarahforwisconsin.com. That's where you can find us.
And do you have an event in Milwaukee this evening? What's going on?
We do. We have an event downtown. It's actually 7 women candidates from the Milwaukee area all coming together. And I actually don't remember where it is.
Don't list them off. We don't have time.
I know.
Sarah Godlewski, candidate for treasurer of the state of Wisconsin, a Democrat, a fine one. Thank you so much for coming in studio. Sarah, we'll talk to you real soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Nobody knows more about debt than I do.
To conceal the source of money as by channeling it through an intermediary.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money?
Our public school system is under attack. Make sure you know what's going on. Join us for Educators Amplified Part 5 this Saturday, October 13th, 12 noon till 3 at Mr. J's Lounge in Milwaukee. An open town hall meeting to discuss the state of our public education. Hear from the people in our schools and our classrooms and the experts, and they want to hear from you. What's being done to reclaim our public schools? All of this and more will be discussed this Saturday at Educators Amplified Part 5. Or listen right here on Real Resistance Radio, 1510 a.m. Waukesha, Milwaukee, and 1580 a.m. Columbus, Madison. Educators Amplified Part 5. From the Earl Ingram Show, Tim Slecker's Busted Pencil Radio Show, Milwaukee Teachers Education Association, WEAC Region 7, Schools and Communities United Citizen Action, AFT Local 212, and Real Resistance Radio. Educators Amplified Part 5, broadcasting live from Mr. J's Lounge, 4610 Fond du Lac Avenue in Milwaukee, from noon to 3 this Saturday, October 13th. Doors open at 11:30. You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Special report, Hurricane Michael. Michael made landfall in Mexico Beach, Florida, leveling many homes and causing widespread destruction. Patricia Mulligan lives there.
This is total devastation. I mean, my brother also has house on the beach that's gone. I mean, there's nothing left of it.
Mulligan says the winds were so strong the concrete building she was in was swaying. Correspondent Diane Gallagher.
The winds pulled a lot of things down, drain pipes, awnings, things like that around here in Panama City Beach. This isn't quite over here yet. The winds start to feel like they've been blowing from different directions than they were earlier today, but it's a lot better than it was.
The hurricane is moving into southern and central Georgia tonight. The closing bell couldn't come too soon on Wall Street. The worst drop since February, with the Dow down 831 points, S&P down 94, NASDAQ down 315. Tech stocks had their biggest losses in 7 years. I'm Mike Moss. The drop on Wall Street today was big, any way you measure it. Correspondent Allison Kosick looks into why.
One of the worst Dow drops in history, and October is traditionally a tough month for stocks, but this month certainly no different. We're seeing investors really worried about rising inflation, rising interest rates. As we see inflation go up, we're seeing the Fed take this course of raising interest rates.
Tech stocks had their worst day since 2011. Senator Bob Corker says he has reviewed U.S. intelligence reports on the disappearance of that prominent Saudi journalist and critic, and everything points to involvement by the government of Saudi Arabia. Corker says information he's reviewed suggests that Jamal Khashoggi was killed on October 2nd, the day he went to the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The president said today the U.S. is very concerned about what happened.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
The Devil's Advocates.
James Santel, he's a former U.S. attorney. He's our guest live on Brady.
Once again, a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen, to talk about the latest news breaking as we speak.
The FBI raided Michael Cohen, Trump's personal attorney, but once they got there, then they went back and got a more thorough warrant and said, we'll take everything.
My first reaction is you need to teach criminal constitutional law. You've got it just right in terms of the process.
They are kind of a big deal.
This is a really big deal.
491 Bible.
Joe Biden says right now he's not running for president.
Some Democratic candidates are already laying the groundwork for a potential challenge to President Trump in 2020, but right now, former Vice President Biden is not one of them.
I am not one at this point.
Biden made the comments at an event in London after being asked whether he could provide the best alternative to the president when it comes to foreign policy.
I think there are any number of potential candidates seeking the nomination, from Kamala Harris to a whole range of people in my party who would pursue a much more enlightened foreign policy than the president.
The former vice president had previously said he will decide whether to pursue a presidential bid after the midterm elections. I'm John Stolnis.
Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg is registered as a Democrat. A billionaire, Bloomberg has been considering whether to run for president in 2020.
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You've messed up your daughter's haircut. Do you A, get spiritual?
Mom, where's the mirror?
Beauty is within. Oh.
B, find the positives.
Less time blow drying, more time texting?
Or C, show empathy.
Mom, you really don't have to.
Twinsies!
I kinda love it. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on adoption, visit adoptuskids.org. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
5 Nines, your local single source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy59s.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. The woman who is set to take over leadership of the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association is being criticized for appearing in an attack ad against Randy Bryce. Nancy Douglas, who runs a radio station in Lake Geneva, is facing questions about her ethics for starring in the ad, which was paid for by the Congressional Leadership Fund, the super PAC endorsed by Paul Ryan. The Wisconsin Broadcasters Association is a trade group that is supposed to support, promote, and represent all radio and television broadcasters in Wisconsin. Scott Ross, executive director of One Wisconsin Now, said Douglas cannot be trusted as a representative of the trade group for the industry people rely on for unbiased information. Wednesday, rain likely, 73 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance of rain, low around 41. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest, Sarah Godlewski. She's a Democrat running for state treasurer. I like Sarah. I think you like Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah's
and I
awesome.
especially like that leather coat she was wearing today. Very fashionable, Sarah. And she matches. She's wearing the Devil's red.
Yeah, the Devil's, the Resistance red. Fantastic. You know, and we didn't talk about it this time, and we've talked about it before. She got a lot of great ideas with regards to student loans and what they can do with the fund that the treasurer manages. There's a lot to get into. Unfortunately, there's only so much time in a day. But certainly look up Sarah Godlewski, reach out, follow her campaign, help out if you can. We need more people like her to get involved in our state government.
Yes, for a state treasurer candidate. She's quite inspiring. Dom, you know who inspires me?
Who's that, Curdy?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie! Feel the burn, feel the burn, feel the burn!
That one's for you, Lisa. Bernie Sanders coming to Wisconsin, coming on behalf of Tammy Baldwin, Tony Evers, Mandela Barnes, Gwen Moore, and Randy Bryce. Bernie Sanders coming to our backyard, Dom, and I feel a broadcast coming on.
When is it? When's he coming?
A Bernie Sanders rally on the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee campus. That will be Monday, October 22nd. And according to the little online thing, my understanding is doors open at 8 o'clock. The event is scheduled to run to about 11, so get there early if you want to be up close and personal. And I would guess the event will start, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then, headliners. And then Bernie Sanders feel the burn.
Nice. That's starting, man.
I love me some Bernie
Now,
Sanders.
you know, of course, he's coming to support the local Dem candidates, but come on, man. You know he's already making the rounds. He's running for president again.
You think Bernie's running again? I'm not sure. I mean, I love me some Bernie Sanders, but you know what? I love me some Elizabeth Warren just a little bit more, and I have little or no doubt Elizabeth Warren is gearing up for a run. Dom, I don't know if we talked about this, and I don't know if this is an opportune time or not, but I'm going to say it. When do you think the 2020 presidential race will start?
Let's see. When's the primary?
Mike, that's a very good question.
I would say, let's see, the primary is November 6th, right? November 7th.
That's the midterms. And I'm
sorry, the midterm, yes.
You're too late. I think it's already begun. There is sort of a quiet primary going on. People are already positioning because they want to run for president. They want a chance to take a crack at Donald Trump, and who doesn't? But Dom, here is an interesting point. You know when the presidential debates, the Democratic presidential debates, might start by? Spring of 2019. Before the snow leaves the ground in Wisconsin, you and I will probably leave the state to go chase some presidential debate, Dom, in a field of Democrats that could number 10 or more.
Wow. In the spring. Now, the first debate we went to last election cycle was in Vegas, right?
September of 2015, I believe.
September. So this will be, if that prediction proves accurate, this will be 6 months before the last election cycle.
Now, that's not my prediction. I read that in Politico, but they are planning debates to hit the spring and summer calendar of 2019. Wow. It will be a large field of Democrats. And if you got debates that early, you've got a what? What if you got 10, 12, 15 candidates on the Democratic side? Remember what happened on the Republican side last time around, right? They had the real debate and they had the kids' table. Well, nobody wants to be at the kids' table with Carly Fiorina. So, effectively, you've already got to make a splash. And I would point out, Bernie Sanders coming to the state of Wisconsin, I think that could be a campaign in waiting. That certainly is a way to ingratiate oneself to the Democrats here in the state of Wisconsin. Hopefully, a few future colleagues, well, Tammy, of course, a current colleague, and Bernie's made an effort and endorsed our buddy Randy Bryce. Like to see him in the congressional side as well. But if you're running for president, you need a few allies. One thing I will say about Hillary Clinton, she had the best friends. She had the best surrogates. And now about a half a dozen of those surrogates we had when Hillary Clinton was running in 2016, didn't have her, but had many fine surrogates. About 6 of them are probably going to run for president. Kamala Harris, she's also being mentioned, the former Attorney General of California, the current state. Well, she is a U.S. Senator from the state of California. Kamala Harris is going to be in Milwaukee and Madison the day before Bernie comes to town. She's also doing, a little campaigning on behalf of Tammy Baldwin. Second time she's been through the state of Wisconsin on behalf of Baldwin. But Kamala Harris will be in Madison, in Milwaukee, October 21st. That's a Sunday. You better mark it on your calendars.
Now, I know we do this thing. We talk politics. We talk trash. We just talk life, right?
Oh, I thought you meant you annoy people. That's sort of your thing.
Well, let me
Maybe
get
it's
going.
Just me that you annoy, but please continue.
Do we want, really, already?
Yes.
Already? Come on. Don't you think people need a break? People need a breather.
Yeah, you go to bed on election night. That's your break. You wake up the next morning, and it's time to start worrying about 2020, Dom. No, the election to displace Donald Trump could not come soon enough as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's a little early. Of our lifetimes, yes, I know. Elections.
Ever. The most important decision ever. Who will be the Democrat that beats Donald Trump? Who will be the candidate to galvanize our nation, the left, the right, and the center, at least the left and the center? And I think right now, Dom, my early favorite, Elizabeth Warren. She is the most compelling politician, bar none, that I've ever seen in person. And I got to tell you, Cory Booker is awfully compelling, and I've seen Kamala Harris only in speeches. Seems quite compelling. But Elizabeth Warren, is just incredible. Her ability to connect with the voters on the rope line, in the crowds, and the fact that she's not afraid of anything. She is fearless. Elizabeth Warren, right now, my early favorite, although you know me, Dom, I still feel the burn.
We got a long way to go. Let's take a break before we get into some of the state politics. I guess it's never going to end. It never, ever, ever ends. I guess that's why people maybe don't want to pay attention, don't want to pull their head out of the sand, because if you pay attention and it bothers you and you don't do anything about it, well, then you got that carried around with you.
Then you're part of the problem.
Exactly. If you just ignore it, and maybe it'll go away, but of course we know that doesn't happen. That is how you get people like Donald Trump as president.
Dominic, we talk about politics each and every day. I find a little something to be grieved about each and every day, politically speaking. No, bring it on, man. Until Donald Trump is gone, until Scott Walker is gone, I cannot wait for the next day when the sun comes up so I can get out there and fight and resist and be the super coolest co-host of the greatest radio show ever. The Devil's Advocates, you're listening to us right now. You can always join us on the phones, keeping it Badger style when we come back. That phone number, 844-967-2789. What's with the slow unwind here, Dom?
We'll be fine. Once again, we are the Devil's Advocates. Charles Franklin going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour. We're going to hit some state politics right now, and you can join us on the phones. As Crudy mentioned, the party line, talk or text, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, you don't really offend me much unless you're drinking beer.
I love beer. I like beer.
I know you do.
I still like beer. I've always liked beer.
I'd rather see you drink tequila. You're a bad beer drunk. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates.
The president has chosen to put himself and our country in the situation we find ourselves today.
I liked beer. I still like beer.
That's no good. No good for America, no good for the American people, and frankly, no good for the president.
Hi, this is Demi, pharmacist at Hyatt, locally owned pharmacy in the community of Milwaukee. Simplifying lives, one prescription at a time is our goal. Do free delivery of your medications to your home and at work. All your meds are brought together in one convenient dosage package individualized to your medication needs. We set up a house call with a licensed pharmacist to assist with medication management. We accept all insurance plans. To learn more about Hyatt, visit our website, HAYATRX.com.
JWK Management has many apartments available on the east side of Milwaukee. Currently, there's an opening just above Campali Restaurant overlooking historic Brady Street. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath with 1,500 square feet, a large kitchen, pantry, and main living space. Free washer and dryer in the building and off-street parking is available. For more information, call 608-729-1810. For your new apartment, call 608-729-1810.
Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of Five Nines. Have you got your head in the clouds on how to manage IT for your enterprise? We can make your dreams a reality. With our enterprise cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting, we'll manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Consider Five Nines your personal enterprise IT solution. Enjoy technology. For more information, visit fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Well, technically it's 418, but we're proactive here at the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio, and you can always join us on the party line, 844-967-2789.
And Dominic, it's always just the right time to do a little hashtag Walker bashing.
Yeah.
Let's do some now. Mark Summerhauser at the online Madison.com. Scott Walker, preserving manufacturing agricultural tax breaks, key to growth, and my campaign donations.
Right.
I read from the Summerhauser piece. Governor Scotty Wanker defended his signature tax break for manufacturers and farmers Tuesday while touting his plan to draw more unemployed people into the workforce.
If we're at full unemployment, how is that going to work?
Full employment?
I'm sorry,
I don't
full
know.
employment? Right.
We don't have a jobs problem. We got a worker problem. Walker's remarks came at an event in Madison sponsored by, wait for it, the WMC, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, sort of friendly turf Dom.
You think?
Oh, it's even written here. He was introduced to the friendly crowd as the architect of Wisconsin's transformation.
Now, let's just stop for a moment. Again, I'm tired of being nice. That's a bunch of BS. Walker could have done nothing. When you come back from a global recession, certainly the worst recession in this country in a generation.
Jim Doyle's recession?
You could have done nothing, and we would have been better off. But please continue, Michael.
I'm proud of the fact that we have turned things around and that we're headed in the right direction. In an implicit jab at his Democratic opponent, Tony Evers, Walker defended the manufacturing and agribusiness tax credit he signed into law, which wipes out almost all of the income tax bill for manufacturers and farmers. I just want to know, how do I get a sweet deal like that, Dom?
Well, you just got to give the man millions and millions of dollars. I mean, how much money did the WMC spend since August? Like $2 million?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
How much money has Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce spent with pro-Walker ads since the primary?
Like $2.5 million they have been supportive
okay,
of
so
Scott
your
Walker,
question...
But Scott Walker is giving them back $350 million per year in tax breaks. That seems like quite an investment, Dom.
Absolutely.
What's that, like a 325% return? I'm sorry, I don't do math on the radio.
1,000%. $3 million to $300 million? Come on, man. But anyway, to your point, to your question, Crudy, if you want that sweet 0.4% tax rate like the WMC members get, the manufacturers and agribusiness, well, you just got to cut a couple $1 million of ads for Scott Walker. See?
Walker cast the break as integral to the state's recent growth in manufacturing employment. He said 88% of the beneficiaries of the credit are small businesses. Please define small business for me, Dom. And where he grabbed that statistic from his ass. If we were to wipe that out, we would be taking out a lot of growth and prosperity in this state, Walker said. Now, Evers has proposed eliminating the credit, and he's right to do so, calling it largely a giveaway to the wealthy and large corporations. Evers' spokeswoman, Britt Kudebeck, said in a statement that it's pretty clear our economy is working for wealthy corporate interests, not Wisconsin families. Evers has emphasized 93% of the benefit from the credit goes to taxpayers who make more than $250,000 a year, Dom. 93% of the benefit goes to recipients making more than $250,000 a year. Small businesses. Tony believes Wisconsin's tax structure should be fair, and that includes repealing the man and ag corporate handout so we can instead prioritize helping hardworking families get ahead, Kudebeck said, Dom.
Walker also outlined his workforce development goals, which include encouraging employers to hire more people with disabilities and recruiting military veterans and millennials to relocate to Wisconsin from Chicago and elsewhere. Remember, we got like ads on trains down in Chicago for what, a couple $1 million?
He was bragging about one of the kids. I don't know if it was Matt or Alex being down in Chicago, calling him up or texting him, "Hey, Dad, I saw another one of the Wisconsin signs on the mass transit that I use as a millennial living outside the state of Wisconsin."
Mass transit?
And Scott Walker brought that up.
Mass transit? What's that? I live in Wisconsin. I continue from Summerhauser's piece. His policy also calls for expanding drug testing requirements for public assistance, which Walker and other proponents say gets unemployed people ready to pass a drug test and enter the workforce. Walker's administration is advancing a plan to drug test food stamp recipients and public housing residents it identifies as able-bodied.
So other than potentially shaming poor people, and statistical rates show that poor people don't have the money to buy drugs.
Poor people use drugs at a lower rate than non-poor people.
Than Republicans.
Right. Yeah, but, the Republicans, they have a job. It is also seeking federal approval to drug test childless adults enrolled in Medicaid. Opponents call such requirements dehumanizing to those seeking public assistance and say they have proven costly and ineffective where implemented elsewhere. That is true.
When has that ever stopped Scott Walker from putting forth a proposition that sticks it to poor people, Don?
It's not so much about sticking it to poor people than it is about riling his base. And if it just sticks
shaming poor people.
Yeah, well, if that's a end result of it, just a bonus. Evers' campaign website said he would repeal controversial drug testing requirements and adopt health and welfare policies that improve quality of care and strengthen families rather than punish them.
So Scott Walker, in front of Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, is bragging and saying, give credit to the $350 million per annum tax giveaway to manufacturers. Of course, Tom, maybe if it had been budgeted and fairly represented, but the Republicans didn't tell us it was a $350 million per annum boondoggle. Republicans said, well, $150 million it'll cost. They've more than doubled the expense of the giveaway. I mean, look at Kimberly-Clark. What more example do you need? A corporation paying no taxes. What are you going to do now? So you want to incentivize Kimberly-Clark not to close one of their two factories, and since they don't pay any taxes currently in the state of Wisconsin, and yet still cannot feasibly, apparently profitably run a corporation, profitably run a factory in the state of Wisconsin, got to close one down, don't pay any taxes, and still can't balance the books. So now we, the taxpayers, are supposed to subsidize an otherwise profitable corporation $100 million? It's 17% on the payroll wage. What would be the upside for the state of Wisconsin? I keep throwing this math out. No one has told me I'm wrong on this. If you incentivize the labor rate, it's 17 cents on the dollar. Is now the Foxconn example, and apparently the Kimberly-Clark, as we, the taxpayers, are now doing under Governor Walker, unprecedented returns for these corporations, unprecedented perks for these corporations, like more than 2.5 times the normal incentive that would be logical. But understanding the base corporation, the manufacturer, doesn't pay any taxes, Dom. Once again, I would point out, if our only upside is collecting state taxation on the taxes of the workers because the owner of the corporation doesn't pay any taxes, and the maximum rate that a Wisconsin worker would pay is approximately 7.5%, and you incentivize every dollar of their wage at 17%, you're effectively giving them 2.5 times more to keep that person employed than that employee pays back in cumulative state taxes. How does that math make any freaking sense?
And how does it go with the Republican attitude that we need free market capitalism, right? Let unleash consumerism, and that'll do the trick. But it's okay when Republicans stick their thumb on the scale and encourage businesses to do one thing or another through tax policy. They're just not consistent because, of course, it's all about getting paid, and it's all about getting reelected.
Well, getting paid those campaign dollars, those sweet, sweet, dark dollars. Come back with us. Devil's Advocate's going to take a little pause, get paid. That's what we do on a radio station. 844-967-2789. Come back with us. I know you will.
Our economy's on fire.
Oh my God, we're burning alive!
Talk it out, man.
Scotty's on fire! Kind of grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
Indoor baseball, anyone?
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m. It will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's the Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Have you outgrown your house? Are you sick of apartment living? Not ready to buy but know you need to move? Hi folks, this is Tom Hartman for CCL Management in Middleton. You should consider moving up to one of the finer rental homes CCL Management represents. Unique houses and condos, always clean, most are pet friendly. Visit cclmanagement.com today to find your new home. CCL Management, Dane County's premier leasing and property management company.
Call CCL Management at 833-0009. That's 833-0009 or visit cclmanagement.com today.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
On marijuana, unfortunately, as a public health issue and a public safety issue, I've opposed that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, how can medical marijuana help those addicted to opioids?
There's three big things. There's clear consensus now that cannabis can treat pain. That is not an opinion. That is a consensus conclusion by big scientific bodies like the National Academy of Science. We also know that it can help treat the withdrawal symptoms of opioids. People, they don't want to be on them anymore. They want to quit, but they develop the terrible withdrawal symptoms. And now we have evidence that it can actually help heal the part of the brain that is diseased in someone who's an opioid addict. If you had to start from scratch and design a substance to help lead us out of the opioid epidemic, like in a lab, it would probably look very much like cannabis.
Call Governor Scott Walker at 608-266-1212. Tell him good people do smoke marijuana. This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Here are your headlines for October 10th. The chairman of the Democratic National Committee was in Milwaukee over the weekend to support Democrats running for office, including Tony Evers, and to get a look at the new Pfizer Forum. Tom Perez is the person who will decide where Democrats hold their national convention in 2020. Milwaukee is one of three finalists to get the convention. Houston and Miami Beach are the other two cities. Republicans have outspent Democrats 2-1 on broadcast television in Wisconsin's governor race. The majority of that money has come from outside groups. Candidate for Governor Tony Evers wants to lower drug prices by creating a new state board that would review price hikes and impose fines on drug makers for excessive price increases. And the Milwaukee School Board has voted to make the interim superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools the permanent superintendent. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
The Devil's Advocates, where there's always time for Scott Walker bashing. Hashtag Walker bashing.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dom, the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association, they host the debates, the gubernatorial, the senatorial debates right here in the great state of Wisconsin. I, as you know, am a member of the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association by virtue of the fact I pay the dues and I own a radio station. But Dom, we've been talking about this member of the board, Nancy Douglas, who's gone on the attack against Randy Bryce. And we have an update, a scoop, if you will, on this story, Dom. But first, please set the stage for the audience.
Of course, what's her name? Nancy Douglas. She's on an ad, and she talks about her experience raising children as a single mom, according to Mary Spikuza at the Journal Sentinel, as well as her daughter's struggle to collect child support from the father of her child. And here's her quote in the ad. Randy Bryce did the same thing to his own family, refusing to pay child support. Randy Bryce is a deadbeat. He's not fit to serve in Congress. Now, of course, Crudy takes a little bit of umbrage with that. The WBA defended Douglas on Tuesday, saying she participated in the ad as a private citizen, not a representative of the WBA. And here's a quote. In the case of this video, Nancy Douglas is not representing the WBA nor any positions taken by the WBA. We cannot prevent our members from speaking on issues that are important to them outside of their roles within the WBA. The WBA describes itself as a nonpartisan organization, but said individual members hold a variety of personal opinions.
I know I do.
Our members feel free to express their views. While the WBA doesn't get involved in partisan politics, we don't stop our members from doing so. And Douglas herself defended her decision to appear in the ad. And here's a quote. I think that the reason I am in that ad has absolutely nothing to do with my job, my volunteer position. It was strictly a personal choice. It has absolutely zero to do with anything that has to do with my job. It has zero to do with the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association or any of my efforts on behalf of any of the members of the organization. She added that she'd support journalists and other broadcast professionals as a longtime board member. This decision was based on my personal experience in my life. I have never compromised my objectivity. Crudy, finally, she is a frequent contributor to the Republican Party of Walworth County and the 1st Congressional District Republican Party of Wisconsin, and has given campaign cash to State Senator Alberta Darling of River Hills. That's my state senator.
Darling.
Oh, God. Online campaign finance reports show.
Was that wrong? Well, should I not have done that?
Well, Dominic, perhaps a scoop for our audience, and I report this not as a fine Cub reporter, not as a fine journalist, at least not exclusively. I report this as a WBA member, Dom. I just got me an email from the WBA, Madison, Wisconsin. Dateline, Wisconsin Broadcasters Association board member Nancy Douglas has resigned from her seat on the WBA board. Her resignation was received today in an email from the WBA. The WBA board thanks Nancy for her many years of service. A copy of the news release is attached. That's pretty much it, Bye, Nancy Felicia. Douglas. Yeah. Bye, Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
She's out. I think she made a poor choice, and I think this will probably close this sordid tale, Dom. But it was inappropriate for a WBA board member. Hell, she was the incoming board chair, Dom.
Right.
And as a private citizen, she just decided she was going to go after a Democratic congressional candidate, our buddy Randy Bryce.
And I get the point. You know, certainly as a board member, or I'm not sorry, as a member of the WBA, Curdy, you're not a board member, but you are a member, as every member does.
I could be if I wanted to.
They have their own thoughts. I mean, that's fine. But when you get onto the board and you're supposed to represent a nonpartisan organization, and your face is all over the state lambasting a congressional candidate, come on. And for the defense initially, for the WBA to come out and defend, and for her to come out and initially defend, well, what changed their mind? It was. I think it's the right decision has finally been made. She never should have done it in the first place and be president of the WBA, my humble opinion.
Dom, I've got another reaction. One Wisconsin Now. They were the ones that made this complaint about Douglas. They noted the fact the WBA effectively is the organization that hosts the debates in the state of Wisconsin. And let's not forget, it was the WBA, when challenged on their ridiculous process for running dim gubernatorial debates, well, they punted, Dom, and they decided to eliminate the debates in their entirety. But here is a press release just dropped. One Wisconsin Now, I've read like a paragraph ahead. It's short. One Wisconsin Now Executive Director Scott Ross released the following statement on the resignation announcement. I wonder if he heard it here. By the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association of Board Chair-elect Nancy Douglas. One Wisconsin Now raised the issue just yesterday of Douglas participating in a sleazy attack ad produced by Paul Ryan's Super PAC against Democratic congressional candidate Randy Bryce. Here's the statement, Dom. We think Miss Douglas made the right decision.
Yes, I concur.
Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates.
That's it?
You made the right. That was it. We think Miss Douglas made the right decision, and our audience always makes the right decision. Tuning in right here on 1510 AM, 1580 AM, live streaming at realresistanceradio.com. You're listening to the greatest radio show ever. You've all made the right decision.
I don't know if I've ever heard or read of Scott being so short and concise.
It's unlike his normal snarky character, is it not?
Well done, One Wisconsin Now. Thank you for pursuing that. I think we're all a little bit better off because of that.
I commend the fine people, and good luck in your future endeavors, Miss Douglas. Dominic, back to the headlines right here in the great state of Wisconsin. I got one I want to throw out there. I'm trying to find it here quickly. Don't be slow, Dom. UrbanMilwaukee.com, the online daily. Bruce Thompson writes a little piece. He calls it The Incoherence of Scott Walker.
Oh, man, that could be really long. There's a lot of incoherence.
I want to share part of this with our audience. Like Leah Vukmer, Scott Walker is underwater in his approval rating from independents, according to the Marquette Law School polling. The chart below I'll spare you, but it shows Walker minus the percentage. He's at minus 14 amongst independents. That's what the little graph shows. The poll also asks whether the voter approves or disapproves of the way Scott Walker is handling his job as governor. The chart shows the net approval percentage of registered voters as minus 14% and of likely voters as minus 32%. That's on Scott Walker's approval rating. Unlike Vukmer's approval rating, which seemed to get worse over time and were lower among the subset of registered voters most likely to vote, in Walker's case, it can be hard to discern any sort of trend. For instance, the September sample of likely voters was less disapproving of Walker than was the August sample, yet more disapproving of Walker in his role as governor. Walker's total disapprovals continue to outnumber the approvals. Now, the newest polling, Dom, and we'll go inside the numbers with Charles Franklin at 5:05, but the newest MU polling shows Scott Walker +1 approval rating. In contrast to Vukmer, who seems to make little attempt to broaden her appeal beyond her base, Walker's campaign does appear concerned about the negative views among independents and is trying to counteract it. One manifestation is his rebranding of himself as the education governor.
Sorry, a little something in my throat.
Threw up in your mouth a little bit.
Just
the
a little
tact is reflected in some of the headlines, Walker's ads that pop up on websites. Put more money into education. This sudden generosity to education is a bit ironic since one of his first acts as governor was to cut aid to schools in the 2011-13 budget, as shown below. With typical Walker hyperbole, the Friends of Walker website describes his proposed 2017-19 budget as more actual dollars than ever before, but actual dollars doesn't take into account inflation.
Republicans never take into account inflation. How do they not know about Oh, that's right. They're just trying to deceive us.
When you do, his proposal is less than those from every part of this century. Even at the height of the recession, Doyle was able to find more funds for education in his last year than Walker did in his first. The Friends of Walker website brags about the condition of education in Wisconsin. Here's a quote, Tom. Wisconsin is in the top 10 for high school graduation rates and ACT scores. This is a somewhat puzzling boast, since it seems to redound to the credit of the person responsible for Wisconsin education, Tony Evers, who just happens to be Walker's challenger for governor. A compelling case could be made, I think, that Wisconsin public education has stood pat while other states have worked hard to catch up, and in some cases to pass us, as judged by educational outcomes. But Walker doesn't make it. Rather than argue for educational reforms, Walker and his supporters put most of their energy into attacking Evers over a triviality, for not overriding an arbiter and courts to take away the license of a teacher who made the mistake of viewing porn in his school lunchroom. If nothing else, this obsession strikes me as reflecting a disturbing lack of respect for due process, my little buddy.
Curdy Walker's involvement with education over the last 8 years has been hit and miss. He announces initiatives, but doesn't follow through. He first backed the Common Core curriculum, then, pandering to the Tea Party faction, announced that Wisconsin would replace the Common Core with something made of Wisconsin. That never happened. These are echoes here. Okay, we'll skip that. Early in his administration, Walker pulled together a diverse group aimed at making sure children were able to read competently by 3rd grade, an admirable enterprise, but one that has been left adrift without leadership. Expanding
you remember the Read to Lead board, Dom?
Vaguely. Expanding the availability of health insurance is another example of how ascending to the demands of the Republican base conflicts with appealing to independents. Walker approved Attorney General Brad Schimmel's request to co-lead with Texas a court challenge to the continued existence of the Affordable Care Act. As described in an earlier column, Schimmel asked a judge to 1, end the ACA's ban on discrimination based on pre-existing conditions, and 2, declare the whole ACA unconstitutional. The Schimmel lawsuit, even in the likely event it is thrown out, has the effect of increasing uncertainty and thus inducing insurers to raise their rates. Yet at the same time, Walker supports a reinsurance plan that would limit the risk to insurers facing high-cost cases. Reinsurance aims at reducing the insurer's risk, thus holding down prices. Walker is simultaneously pursuing policies to tear down the ACA and reinforce it.
Call him a little bipolar, Dom.
The core of Walker's political success has long been his claims to positively impact the Wisconsin economy. He took office shortly after the economy hit bottom. In the words of his campaign website, quote, during the 4 years before we took office, Wisconsin was headed backwards with a loss of 133,000 jobs and an unemployment rate that peaked at 9.3%. He then takes credit for the subsequent recovery. In the words of a Walker tweet, our bold reforms have Wisconsin's unemployment rate down to an all-time low of 2.9%, with the number of people working at an all-time high. The problem is that most other states and many other countries follow the same pattern. Walker never addressed the challenge of separating the effect of his policies from the recovery of the global economy, which I mentioned earlier, Crute, and in fact, so did Bruce Thompson at Urban Milwaukee. He found that in the period between 1990 and 2011, the job numbers from 6 of Wisconsin's neighboring states could be used to accurately estimate the number of jobs in Wisconsin. Yet after Walker took office, that model broke down, overestimating the number of jobs Wisconsin created by about 70 to 80,000 jobs.
That's because after Act 10, Dom, and that was disastrous for business. You can say what you want about it politically, but it was god-awful for business, and it is the time when the state of Wisconsin went divergent from the national models, from the Midwestern models. Dom, it was specifically Scott Walker's Act 10, which took money directly out of the pockets of hundreds of thousands of Wisconsin employees. I mean, when you cut people's take-home pay by 10, 12%, has anybody ever austerity'd their way out of a recession, Dom? You've taken away the spending power of the workers. And of course, we talked about it yesterday and continuously. Scott Walker and Brad Schimmel, through lawsuit, pushed back on the overtime rights of the low-waged employee. Suck it, Fancy Brian. He doesn't know I'm talking about him,
he knows you're talking. But that's okay, Crudy, because their point was to kneecap their political rivals. Low-wage workers are probably going to vote for Dems. Teachers and all those taking advantage of, Wisconsin's hardworking taxpayers, well, hell, they're in unions, and Republicans don't like unions. So if it just happens to hurt some of those people while they were, devastating their political rivals, I think they call that collateral damage.
Dominic, the conclusion of the Bruce Thompson piece, in his attempt to appeal to the Republican base, Walker hasn't been able to deliver the kind of job growth he promised. And in his recent change in policies to appeal to independents, he runs the risk of pushing incoherent policies. Yes, he does. 844-967-2789. We're never incoherent, are we?
I tell you, I gotta plead ignorance on this thing, because if anyone had said anything to me at all when I first started here that sort of thing was frowned upon...
Well. Bye.
Bye, Felicia.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We've got a patented system. We also do another step that most people don't do. We have a double rotating brush machine that we use when we pre-treat the carpet. So this helps dig up any of that stuff that's deeper in your carpet that the vacuum doesn't get. We're going to provide that intermediary step before we clean with our empowered water.
Call Zero Res today, 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
I am sick and tired of big power brokers telling voters what's important instead of the other way around. So I joined the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. It's a community of like-minded local progressives where the members help determine what issues are important. And with the aid of professional organizers and some of the top progressive strategists in Wisconsin, we make the powers that be take notice and action. We're working on fair elections, the climate crisis, immigrant rights, electing progressive candidates, and more. Plus, we have a campaign called Radioactive that supports this station and Real Resistance Radio. So, come help us reclaim our power as voters.
Become a member of the Citizen Action Organizing Co-op. Go to citizenactionwy.org.
The Devil's Advocates.
Tom Perez, chair of the Democratic National Committee. Scott Walker went on something of a Twitter storm, very Trumpian. What do you think this foretells for Scott Walker's future as the governor of the state of Wisconsin?
Wisconsinites have woken up. He talked about we need an optimistic message. How can you make people feel optimistic when you take away their health care? How can you make people optimistic when you take away the right to bargain? How can you make people feel optimistic when you're gerrymandering the heck out of districts?
Radio for the 99%. The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio, streaming on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter at Devil Radio. And the party line is always open at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I hear Mike Pence in the state of Wisconsin fundraising for the Wankinator up in the Eau Claire and Green Bay markets today. Dom, there's some other breaking news, or at least news of the day, from the Green Bay market, and it relates to Scotty Wanker. Can you share it for the audience?
I would love to. Speaking of WEDC, Ed Trelevin from the Medicine.com, a De Pere businessman charged with defrauding the state's Economic Development Agency and several other investors out of more than $9 million, more than $1 million of it from state taxpayers, will plead guilty on Friday to one count of wire fraud, according to a plea agreement filed Tuesday by federal prosecutors in Green Bay.
Was that wrong?
He didn't know he couldn't do that, Dom?
Prosecutors also agreed to recommend to the judge that Ronald H. Vandenheuvel, 64, be sentenced to 7.5 years in prison, concurrent to a 3-year prison sentence that he received in January for defrauding the Horicon Bank out of more than $700,000 starting in 2008. Vandenheuvel and his lawyer are free under the agreement to ask for any other sentence. Maximum sentence for the crime to which Vandenheuvel pleading guilty is 20 years in prison. The remaining 13 counts against him would be dismissed under the plea deal. He will formally enter his plea on Friday at the U.S. District Court in Green Bay. The case against Vandenheuvel, and in particular, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corp's write-off of a $1.1 million loan to Vandenheuvel, was criticized by Democrats and everyone else who pays attention as evidence of mismanagement of the agency by the administration of Republican Governor Scott Walker.
Lock her up, lock her up.
The Vandenheuvel loan was one of several botched WEDC deals reported by the Wisconsin State Journal and other news outlets in 2015 that prompted a review of agency practices and a temporary suspension of the agency's loan program.
Now, was it botched or did it work out precisely as Scott Walker wanted it to.
Where is the underwriting docs? That's what I'd like to know. In September of 2017, Vanden Heuvel, owner of Greenbox NA, was charged in a 14-count indictment with 10 counts of wire fraud and 4 counts of money laundering. WEDC's $1.1 million loan was supposed to help the company create 116 jobs by December of 2014 as a part of a project valued at more than $13 million to turn fast food wrappers and other waste paper into synthetic fuel and paper products, all through an environmentally sound process that was touted to produce no waste, Crudy. No waste.
The indictment stated that Vanden Heuvel persuaded Wiedek and other investors to give him money by falsely claiming he had entered into agreements with major companies to advance Greenbox's operations, and that he produced false financial statements that grossly inflated his personal wealth and financial situation. Sounds like Trump, Dom. Under the plea agreement, Vanden Heuvel agreed to pay at least $9.4 million in restitution to lenders and investors. What about the taxpayers of the state of Wisconsin? In July, Vanden Heuvel was sent to jail by a federal judge after U.S. Attorney Matthew Kruger presented evidence showing that he had continued to live a lavish lifestyle while free, even as he failed to repay creditors and requested legal representation by a federal defender instead of private attorney paid from his own pocket.
Yeah.
Need the public defender, Dom.
How very Republican of him.
The plea agreement states that Vanden Heuvel understands that because restitution for the offense is mandatory, the amount of restitution shall be imposed by the court regardless of the defendant's financial resources, and states that he agrees to cooperate in efforts to collect the restitution that he owes. Vanden Heuvel also acknowledged that paying restitution won't restrict or preclude the filing of civil lawsuits against him, the plea agreement states. An addendum to the agreement states that, had the case gone to trial, prosecutors would have been able to prove that Vanden Heuvel began promoting his Greenbox business plan in early 2011, in order to get money from lenders and investors, and apparently benefactor Scott Walker. But once he had the money in hand, prosecutors said he misused it, then took steps to conceal the misuse from lenders and investors. Some of one's acquaintances' $600,000 investment, for example, was used to buy $19,184 in Green Bay Packer tickets.
Go Pack!
Go Pack, go! 100,000 of it went towards settling an old legal dispute. 58,000 went to court-ordered support payments for his ex-wife, and $6,400 went to the mortgage on a home in Florida. Dom, money well spent. Prosecutors said that of the $3.1 million Vanden Heuvel received from a Montreal-based private equity firm, much of the money went towards Vanden Heuvel's personal expenses, including support for his ex-wife, a Cadillac Escalade, and other expenses. The wire fraud charge to which Vanden Heuvel agreed to plead guilty relates to a $1 million wire transfer in September of 2012 by the private equity firm Clifton Equities to a bank in Manitowoc, and the $1.1 million loan from Wiedek, along with a $95,000 grant, was also used in part to make court order payments to his ex-wife, and $45,000 went to settle a lawsuit by a former nanny. What, he had to pay off an NDA, Don? To get the Wiedek loan funds, prosecutors said Vanden Heuvel had to show that Greenbox had acquired an Ecofiber facility in De Pere and bought equipment to produce a marketable pulp and other products, and provide documentation that VHC Incorporated, a company controlled by Vanden Heuvel's brother, had made a $5.5 million capital contribution. But in fact, Greenbox had not acquired the Ecofiber facility. Prosecutors said that instead the facility had gone into foreclosure and was obtained by VHC. Wiedek stated it would not have authorized the loan or disbursement of the funds had it known of Vanden Heuvel's false statements. They knew, Dom. They knew. They knew about him. They knew about Bill Manahan paying off the Maserati, and hell, the Walker administration went out and tried to get them more dollars still. Come back with us. Charles Franklin will go inside the brand new Marquette University Law School polling.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Maybe we could launder the money.
Having a great time.
Hey everyone,
It's your nominee for Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes. I know I don't need to tell you what's at stake with this election, but I want to talk to you about my friend and running mate, Tony Evers. Now, I've gotten to know Tony over the last couple months as we've crisscrossed the state. I've seen his resolve and his dedication to solving the problems Wisconsin faces, especially when it comes to access to quality, affordable health care, protecting our environment, and making sure that every kid in Wisconsin has a great public school, regardless of their zip code. But Tony and I can't win this election alone. We need your help to talk to those that might still be on the fence. So whatever you can do will help. Knock on doors, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family. When we're fighting to take back the state from Scott Walker and the special interests, every little bit helps. You can make the difference in this election. So visit TonyEvers.com and sign up to help. It's time for a change. And that's why Tony for Wisconsin paid for this ad.
You are listening to Real Resistance Radio, WRRD 1510 AM Waukesha and WTTN 1580 AM Columbus. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Special report, Hurricane Michael. Hurricane Michael's winds tapered off to 125 miles an hour, but it's still a Category 3 storm as it crosses Florida and into Georgia. Meteorologist Jennifer Gray is tracking the system.
This is a Category 3 storm rolling into Georgia as we speak from the south. I can assure you that's never happened as long as records have been kept for a storm this strong to enter Georgia from the south. This is incredible.
National Hurricane Center Director Ken Graham says the storm's power will be felt for hundreds of miles around.
There's a lot of wind in there, not just around the center as we focus here, causing a lot of the damage, but also these rain bands could contain hurricane-force winds and also tornadoes.
Hurricane Michael made landfall at Mexico Beach, Florida this afternoon, where resident Patricia Mulligan says the town has been laid to waste.
The building we were in is huge, and it was shaking, it was vibrating and rocking.
I'm Barbara Cusack. President Trump eyed the more than 800-point drop with the Dow and sizable drops by the S&P 500 and NASDAQ, saying the Federal Reserve has gone crazy, the markets are in correction. Correspondent Allison Cossack reports stocks suffered their worst loss in 8 months.
We're seeing investors really worried about rising inflation, rising interest rates. As we see inflation go up, we're seeing the Fed take this course of raising interest rates. So as we see a strong economy, we're seeing the Fed try to sort of clamp down on that inflation that they're seeing play out in the economy.
In a tentative ruling, a San Francisco judge says she will order a new trial in a $289 million judgment against Monsanto. It was brought by a groundskeeper who says Roundup weed killer caused his cancer. The Justice Department gave the go-ahead to the proposed $69 billion merger between CVS Health and Aetna, but with a condition for Aetna to sell its Medicare Part D drug plan. I'm Barbara Cusack.
Do you own a rental property, or would you like to partner with a rental investment team? Call the pros you can trust at CCL Management. Rental expertise second to none, a general contractor on staff to direct repairs and improvements, and real estate brokerage services tailored to the small investor. If you're ready to invest in rental property or just need professionals to manage your real estate portfolio, call us, CCL Management, at 608-833-0009 or visit us on the web at cclmanagement.com.
I'm Andy Buck, Field Representative with Painters and Allied Trades of Wisconsin. It's an issue that brings constant challenges for building contractors. How to find qualified painters, glazers, and drywall finishers. IUPAT knows what you want. A professional job performed by skilled workers who care about safety, training, and finishing strong. Workers who are reliable and ready on demand. Let IUPAT provide the people power that you need. You'll feel confident the job is finished right. Connect at IUPATDC7.com and finish strong.
That's Babbel.com.
An arrest has been made in New York while the investigation into the deadliest transportation accident in the U.S. since 2009 continues. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum reports.
A son of the owner of Prestige Limousine was taken into custody by state police as he drove on I-787 in upstate New York. A lawyer representing the business told reporters that Nauman Hussein was likely to be charged with criminally negligent homicide. The lawyer said he had been cooperating with investigators. The safety record of the company that owned the limo involved in Saturday's deadly crash has come under scrutiny. All 17 passengers and the limo's driver were killed along with 2 pedestrians after it failed to stop at an intersection and barreled through a parking lot. The old stretch limo had failed in 1 month ago.
Sears Holding Corporation may file for bankruptcy as early as Sunday as the company faces a critical debt maturity next week. Such a filing would be the culmination of years of decline as Sears struggled to adapt to changing retail environment.
Join the resistance against dirty carpets. Call Zero Res Madison today for our summer special. Clean and sanitize 3 rooms for only $139. Call 608-848-9000 or schedule online at ZeroResMadison.com. Zero Res, spell it forward or backward, it's the right way to clean.
You're not wired to have a response to this sound. But when we introduce a new stimulus, Save the Food, we're helping to stop food waste. Save the Food. For tips and recipes, visit SaveTheFood.com. Brought to you by NRDC and the Ad Council.
The Resistance is live 7 days a week here on Real Resistance Radio. Tune in Sundays for Meet the Press with Chuck Todd from 11 a.m. to noon. Then it's the Best of the Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 12 to 3 p.m. And Citizen Action's Battleground Wisconsin rages from 3 to 4 p.m. Get your groove on with Stu Man PM, Politics and Music 4 to 6 p.m. with Stu Daniels. Mandatory listening, always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. The woman who is set to take over leadership of the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association is being criticized for appearing in an attack ad against Randy Bryce. Nancy Douglas, who runs a radio station in Lake Geneva, is facing questions about her ethics for starring in the ad, which was paid for by the Congressional Leadership Fund, the super PAC endorsed by Paul Ryan. The Wisconsin Broadcasters Association is a trade group that is supposed to support, promote, and represent all radio and television broadcasters in Wisconsin. Scott Ross, executive director of One Wisconsin Now, said Douglas cannot be trusted as a representative of the trade group for the industry people rely on for unbiased information. Wednesday, rain likely, 73 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance of rain, low around 41. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour, and it's a little happier today because there's new Marquette University Law School polling out, and we've got the pollster extraordinaire. He is our friend Charles Franklin. Charles, welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show.
I always enjoy our drive time together.
Thank you, Charles.
Charles, got to start with the headline of the day. Top of the ticket, Tony Evers versus Scott Walker. Very recently, most recent polling from Marquette. September polling, I believe Tony Evers up by 4 or 5. How we doing now? How's Tony doing? How's Scott Walker doing?
Right. In September, it was Evers 49, Walker 44. Evers is down 3 to 46, and Walker up 3 to 47. So it's Walker by 1 point. That's an obvious toss-up at a 1 point margin. Our polling since the primary has had the race tied in August, Evers by 5 in September, and now Walker by 1 now. Polling done by other organizations in the state since the primary have shown Evers ahead by 5, by 7, by 4, by 2, by 2. And so that outside polling has been a little more favorable to Evers than our current poll is, but the outside pollsters haven't been back to the state in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so their data is a little bit older.
So,
in
Charles,
either case, I would call that either a toss-up or a slight advantage to Evers if you give more weight to the to the earlier leads.
Now, I got to ask you, this is the first poll that I have seen since the August 14th primary that showed Scott Walker in the lead. Do you think this poll is an outlier, or do you think because of the statistical margin of error, do you think that this can be both a modest Scott Walker lead and also reflective of what other polls have shown?
Yeah, this is easily an inside the margin of error situation. Remember, if the margin of error in our poll is 3.9 points for the likely voters, that means that either candidate could be up 4 points more or down 4 points more. So if you just do the arithmetic there, even a month ago, if Evers was at 49, that could have been as high as 53 or as low as 45. And for Walker, could have been as low as 40 or as high as 48. So you see those overlap. That's what margin of error is saying, is that we're uncertain about both of these candidates, and either one of them could be a bit higher or a bit lower. We have seen a poll or two that showed really big Evers leads, but the biggest of those came before the primary. And again, I'm not aware of public polling that's been done yet in October other than ours.
Now, Charles, I'm something of a partisan. I feel like I have a horse in this race. But please remind people, if you recall, sir, how does this race compare to the Scott Walker's Mary Burke race 4 years ago at approximately the same time in the elective cycle? How was Mary Burke doing 4 years ago compared to Walker?
She was a little further behind compared to Evers at this point. She had come close to tying or even ahead by 1 point during the summer in, I think it was July and August. And then Walker pulled further ahead in basically each poll through the fall. This year, we've seen that race be tight in June when Walker had a 2-point advantage, again, inside the margin of error. Then the tie in August, a bit of an Evers lead inside the margin, but still 5 points last month. And now Walker by 1. The trend that we saw in 2014 is not apparent, and Evers is, in our data, clearly doing a stronger job against Walker than Mary Burke was in this period in September and October.
Well,
Still
Charles, that result doesn't catch me by surprise. I had predicted a tightening in the race. I have seen lots and lots more Scott Walker ads, or at least Scott Walker supportive ads or negative ads about Tony Evers than I've seen the other way around. But I've got to ask you this, when we look at the Tony Evers Scott Walker race, that's not unexpected to me, but then compare it. How is the senatorial race going? Tammy Baldwin, Leah Vukmir, this polling happened before the debate Monday night, but that race really hasn't closed. Tammy Baldwin still got a big lead on Leah Vukmir.
Yeah, that race has barely moved. It was 53-42 for Baldwin 3 weeks ago. It's still 53, but 43 for Vukmir this time. A 10-point margin now and real stability between the two. What we see is different between those two races is Baldwin is winning women, whether they're college educated or not college educated, whereas Evers is just breaking even with non-college women and is winning college women. But there's a difference there that favors Baldwin. She's doing better with both categories of women. And then among independents, the Evers race, still Evers is leading among independents, but it's tightened a bit with independents, whereas Baldwin has maintained her bigger advantage with independents. And so what moved in the governor's race did not move in the Senate race. You know, you mentioned the advertising and the campaign messages. It may be that people are being deluged with gubernatorial ads more than they're currently being deluged by Senate ads. And we might be seeing some of the differences in that element of the campaign as well.
Well, and I don't want to diminish the candidacy of our pal Libertarian Phil Anderson. He's polling currently in the gubernatorial race at 5%. But Charles, my next question of you, the Attorney General's race, Josh Kaul, something of a novice politician, first time running for this. Of course, we've got an incumbent AG in Brad Schimmel. How's that race looking? Has Josh Kaul closed the gap?
He has tightened it just a little bit. In September, Schimmel was up 48-41, a 7-point lead. It's now 47 for Schimmel, 43 for Kaul, just a 4-point lead. That, again, is inside the margin of error, but a little bit bigger lead than what we're seeing in the governor's race at the moment. The big story, I think, is that Josh Kaul is still unknown to 81% of our sample. That's down from the 87 that didn't recognize him last month. But Schimmel is at 46% don't know him. 56 didn't know him a month ago. You know, the Attorney General is, as an office, is probably the second most important statewide office that we have. But it's not the sort of office that most people wake up in the morning and wonder, well, what did the Attorney General do last night or yesterday? And so it's not surprising that these two are relatively unknown. Also, Kaul seems to be pursuing a strategy of saving his money for a late ad campaign. At least one article I read this week said that he's planning to unleash a major 4 weeks of ad spending now. So the political scientist in me is looking forward to that because it'll let us see whether big advertising late in the game can really introduce himself to the public over these last 4 weeks. And maybe that race will, in fact, heat up as both of them go on the air.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show on Real Resistance Radio. Charles Franklin, the pollster from Marquette University Law School poll, joins us. They dropped one today. We're getting inside the numbers. Charles, before we get into some of these specific items here, I wanted to look at this one part. 1% say they lack a preference for, Walker or for Evers, or do not lean to a candidate. How does that compare historically? That seems like minds are pretty much made up to me.
More so in the governor's race this time than in the past. Now, we are pushing people to give us who they lean to this time. We've not always done that. But on the first question, who do you prefer, the undecideds in the governor's race are in the mid-single digits, 4 to 5%. So it's actually very few people who tell us when we first ask that they haven't decided. And then with a little bit of push, they're clearly very willing to pick one side or the other, or go with the Libertarian, Phil Anderson, whose overall vote is only 5%. He is getting 11% among independents in this sample.
Wow. All right, let's go on to some of the items here. Charles, taxing and spending, of course, taxes. If you listen to any of the radio or television ads, you know, there's a tax conversation going on. What did you find from your sample?
Yeah, this is one that's worth looking at. We asked, first of all, a general question. Would you rather pay higher taxes and have more state services, or pay lower taxes but get fewer services? This time, 51% say higher tax, more service, versus 42% who say lower tax, lower service. And that's almost completely the reverse of where it was back in January of 2012, when it was 41 higher tax, more service, 50 lower tax, less service. And it was dead even 46-46 in May of 2014 during the previous governor's race. So you can see a shift there from a net of something close to 10% or 9% anyway, opposed to new taxes or higher taxes, to about 9% in favor of them. So that's a shift of the public, and with a middle point where it was tied, so you're kind of sure it really has shifted over time. But then what you're willing to pay for turns out to be pretty specific. When we ask, would you like to keep property taxes low, or would you be willing to raise property taxes to pay more for schools, public schools, 37% want the taxes to be held low, 57% are willing to pay more. Back in 2013, it was 49% keep taxes low, only 46 spend more. So big change, lots more support for spending for public schools. But what about those pesky roads out there? We asked a parallel question. Do you want to keep the gas tax and registration fee where it is now, or would you be willing to see those go up in order to pay more for roads? 61% will not pay more for roads, want to keep the tax where it is. Just 34% said that they would be willing to see the taxes increase. And 32% said that. And finally, the coup de grace, when we ask, how do you think roads are? Among the people that said the roads are in poor condition, less than half, just 48%, were willing to pay more to fix the road.
Well, Charles, not if the gas tax is going up $1 a gallon. Our good friend pollster Charles Franklin. Charles, can you stick around? I got more questions for you on the other side.
Sure. For you, I'm always happy to stick around.
It is the happiest of happy hours. Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, Marquette University Law School poll. He's sticking around. You're listening to the Devil's Advocates on Real Resistance Radio.
You mean not good like 1 out of 100?
I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah!
Our public school system is under attack. Make sure you know what's going on. Join us for Educators Amplified Part 5 this Saturday, October 13th, 12 noon till 3 at Mr. J's Lounge in Milwaukee. An open town hall meeting to discuss the state of our public education. Hear from the people in our schools and our classrooms and the experts, and they want to hear from you. What's being done to reclaim our public schools? All of this and more will be discussed this Saturday at Educators Amplified Part 5. Or listen right here on Real Resistance Radio, 1510 a.m. Waukesha, Milwaukee, and 1580 a.m. Columbus, Madison. Educators Amplified Part 5. From the Earl Ingram Show, Tim Slecker's Busted Pencil Radio Show, Milwaukee Teachers Education Association, WEAC Region 7, Schools and Communities United, Citizen Action, AFT Local 212, and Real Resistance Radio. Educators Amplified Part 5, broadcasting live from Mr. J's Lounge, 4610 Fond du Lac Avenue in Milwaukee, from noon to 3 this Saturday, October 13th. Doors open at 11:30.
Do you love public education? Do you want to support your schools? Then you should support the people who make them work. You should support teachers and their unions. Teachers' working conditions are students' learning conditions, and when the school bell rings, it is crucial that teachers do not check their rights at the door. The ability to organize and advocate around issues that improve the quality of a teacher's workplace will increase opportunities for students and make schools safer for everyone. Stand with teachers, stand with WEAC Region 7.
Getting a raise at work shouldn't mean paying more for healthcare and taking home less. Badger Care is arguably the best and most cost-effective health plan out there, but it's not an option for most of us. Lillian Cheeseman is fighting for us to change this. Lillian is committed to making Badger Care accessible and affordable to anyone in Wisconsin without income qualifiers at an affordable price. Let's cut the red tape on Badger Care and work for a healthier Wisconsin. Be a real Wisconsinite and vote for Cheese for Assembly 15th on November 6th. Paid for by Friends of Cheeseman.
Grass-fed, locally raised, 100% organic. Dom and Crute are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. If you missed any of this fine program, please go online. You can listen to and download podcasts at realresistanceradio.com.
And Dominic, we appreciate our good friend, pollster extraordinaire Charles Franklin, Marquette University Law School, who dropped a new poll today, and he's joined us as he often does when the polling drops. Charles, we appreciate you sticking around. I want to get to the issue of health care, and you asked a multitude of questions about healthcare. We know it's been a central topic in the gubernatorial race, certainly in the senatorial debate the other night. So, I'm going to lump them all together. Charles, here they are. Medicare for all, pre-existing conditions, and ACA Obamacare. What do the polled Wisconsinites believe or think on these topics, sir?
basic question of do you want to keep or repeal Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, that splits with a majority, 50%, saying that we should keep it, and 44% saying repeal it. That is, let me make sure I said that right. 50% would keep it, 44% repeal it. That's something that's flipped over time. Until 2016, more people had a negative view of the ACA than a positive one. Then when Congress and the president really tried to repeal it in 2017, we saw those opinions flip. So there's not huge majorities either way, but about 6 to 10% more now favorable to ACA rather than opposed to it. We also asked the question about pre-existing conditions, which is something that, of course, is covered within the ACA and would be under threat if it were repealed, or at least would need a replacement policy for pre-existing conditions. Here, it's probably not a surprise that most people think that is a very important thing. 78% say that pre-existing conditions should continue to be covered, or insurance companies should have to cover them. 78% say that's very important, and another 15% say it's somewhat important. So that's a big majority. But the striking thing is, even among the people who would like to see ACA repealed, 65% still say pre-existing conditions are very important for them to see covered. And that's transparently why you see Democrats pushing the importance of pre-existing conditions and Republicans responding that even if they're opposed to ACA, they would somehow preserve the pre-existing condition coverage. And then finally, we asked for the very first time about Medicare for all, a new issue. We found 49% would favor a Medicare for all system, 41% would oppose it. But I think this is a case where that's an initial start of this, and political debate would be important for where we come down, whether support for Medicare for all would grow or whether the opponents would find ways to show how difficult that would be, for example, what it would cost.
Charles Franklin, pollster at Marquette University Law School poll. Only got 2 minutes left, Charles, so I got to ask you about the partisan makeup of the sample. Back in the September 18th polling, it was 45% Republican, 46% Democrat, and 8% independent. This particular sample is 47% Republican, 44% Democrat, and 8% independent. What can we draw out of that sample size when trying to compare to the last polling if all the Dems voted for Dems and all the Republicans voted for Republicans?
Sure. Basically what it did was move from a 1-point Democratic advantage to a 3-point Republican advantage, and it did that by the Democrats dropping a couple of points and the Republicans going up a couple of points. With a 3.6 margin for error, neither of those is much movement from the point of view of margin of error. But the key way to look at that is that shift in makeup should make you wonder if everything moved in a GOP direction. Well, it did move in a Republican direction for the governor's race, but it moved in a Democratic direction for the Attorney General, and it didn't move the Senate at all. So the makeup of the poll is a perfectly appropriate thing to talk about and be concerned about, but you can't say this change in the partisanship made 3 races move, 1 Republican, 1 Democratic, and 1 not move. That's not happening because of the partisan makeup.
That doesn't mean that some people won't say that you oversampled Republicans, although I, Charles Franklin, would never make that sort of cynical aspersion against you, sir.
I know you would never go there. Seriously, it is an appropriate question, but then look at it in that context of what happened in these 3 races. It's the issues in the campaigns, I think, much more than it's just the partisan makeup.
Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, Marquette University Law School poll. Always appreciate your presence when the polling drops. Thanks a lot, Charles.
My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you, Charles.
More Devil's Advocates on the other side. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
My name is Lola Silvestri, and I'm going to be 95 this year. I was very independent. I fell, and I had to have Meals on Wheels. America, let's do lunch.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
Here's how you get them. If someone invites you for a cocktail, you bring them beer. If someone invites you to dinner, you bring a casserole. That's how you make friends. That's the Wisconsin way.
Brad Zog, owner of Zero Res Madison, resisting dirty carpets and harsh chemicals. Brad, why should people use Zero Res Madison?
Why wouldn't you clean your carpets like this? We're not using any soaps. We're not using any chemicals. We cost about the same as the other guys. You look at it and you go, where's the downside? You got a completely green clean. That's awesome. We guarantee it. There's no downside.
There's no downside. Use Zero Res. Call Zero Res today. 608-848-9000. Zero Res. Spell it forward or backward. It's the right way to clean.
Hi, I'm State Representative Jocasta Zamaripa, and I need you to vote and make your voice heard in this election. Vote for your health care. Vote for your schools. Vote for your neighborhood. Vote for change and hope instead of division and fear. And starting Monday, September 24th, skip the line and vote early. Go to myvote.wi.gov for more information on your polling place. And thank you for being a voter.
Paid for by Ford with Jocasta.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only ordering classic corner tavern.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes, exclusively on Real Resistance Radio. Call in live at 844-967-2789 and give your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on local and national topics. Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until 11 a.m., it will not be what you expect to hear, but we will definitely give you what you need to know. That's The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes on Real Resistance Radio. Always streaming live on realresistanceradio.com.
For Real Resistance Radio, my name is Keith Gosted. Senator Tammy Baldwin is leading a push by Democrats to overturn a recent Trump administration rule that she says could hurt people with pre-existing conditions. The Trump administration approved a rule to allow consumers to purchase short-term insurance plans that don't meet requirements of the Affordable Care Act. The president is threatening to veto Baldwin's measure. The vote could come as early as today. Senator Baldwin has made protecting those with pre-existing conditions a centerpiece of her re-election campaign. Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett and Health Commissioner Jeanette Kowalik are asking Milwaukee faith leaders to help them fight infant deaths in the city. Wisconsin farmers who are already dealing with the effects of Donald Trump's trade war and low commodity prices are getting dealt another blow. Wet and muddy fields are keeping them from their fall harvest work. For Real Resistance Radio, I'm Keith Gosted.
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the happy hour. It continues, Dom, and we're always happy to hear from our audience at 844-967-2789. Want to thank pollster extraordinaire Charles Franklin, our buddy. He is the director of the Marquette University Law School poll, and some people say he has a habit of oversampling Republicans. But I would never say that.
Some people say.
But some people might. Dom, there is an article I'd like to get out there. There was a press conference this morning. I believe it was at the Wisconsin Senate. Caitlin Farrell reports at the Cap Times, despite his liberal personal politics, John Green, a former assistant attorney general at the Wisconsin Department of Justice, was hired by a Republican attorney general and promoted into leadership by another. When Brad Schimmel took office in 2015, that tradition of respecting and rewarding competence and professionalism over politics died, Green said. Here's a quote. Former attorney generals, no matter their party affiliation, always respected the professional and independent judgment of the attorney staff, said Green, who retired in 2016 after 26 years at the agency. Green led the DOJ Consumer Protection Unit after being appointed by former Republican Attorney General J.B. Van Hollen. Green later worked in criminal appeals. When he left, Green said morale was extremely bad and sinking, and he is far from alone in that sentiment. A dozen employees, both current and former, shared similar concerns with the Cap Times. In addition, 45 former assistant attorneys general signed an open letter in August opposing Schimmel's re-election on the same grounds. About 14 of those who signed the letter, including Green, outlined their grievances, normally we do that on Friday, Dom, against the State Department of Justice and their support for Josh Kaul, Schimmel's Democratic opponent, at a press conference at the Capitol Wednesday. The attorneys are part of one division within the Department of Justice, which has more than 800 employees who deal with criminal justice issues across a variety of areas outside of the courtrooms. Employees at the State Crime Lab, another division within the DOJ, have also complained of poor morale and pay at the agency, according to a consultant report released by the agency in August, Dom.
Bill Gasner, who served as a former assistant attorney general for several decades and retired from the department a year after Schimmel took office, said Schimmel's management, quote, has damaged the reputation of the department, and said and that State Department of Justice is no longer seen as a place where young attorneys can come and grow, being allowed to exercise their professional legal judgment over political consideration. Little room is left for discussion, criticism, and nuance, he said, speaking about the department's criminal appeals unit. Gansner called the move by former employees unprecedented and disputed any notion that he and others gathered were partisan activists. I am not here out of allegiance to any particular party. The Department of Justice spokesman denied the accusation that the agency has become politicized, and the head of a prominent conservative legal think tank also strongly disagreed. But Democratic lawmakers say the department under Schimmel, a Republican, has become simply an arm of the Republican Party of Wisconsin. Much of the contention centers around the Office of the Solicitor General, a unit within the Department of Justice. 40 states have similar offices, and they routinely handle legal appeals, cases that often carry a lot of political baggage. Many Republicans' attorneys general, for example, challenged the ACA during President Barack Obama's administration, and many Democrats are now challenging actions by the Trump administration, and solicitors general have been key parts in these fights. Paul Nolet, an associate political science professor at Marquette University, who has studied attorneys general offices nationwide, said states have been using their solicitors general more and in a partisan way in recent years. And while he said Schimmel has been a part of that trend, he did not identify him as an outlier. One thing that isn't in dispute is that the Office of Solicitor General has grown tremendously under Schimmel. Where it was once a single employee, it is now 9. 9? Crudy, 9? Did you give that guy his phone back from the bar?
Misha Tetzlin is the Solicitor General of the state of Wisconsin. He's so very proud that someone could pick him out of a lineup, out of a crowded bar. I recognize the man. He sat next to us. He and some pretty young lady, I assume his wife or girlfriend. And then he promptly, the top cop, or at least the Solicitor General of the state of Wisconsin, he left his phone at the bar.
And you gave it back to him.
Without even trying to break into it. Damn it, I'm too nice.
You are a nice guy. I'm not being nice anymore. I'll continue. Critics of the department say its employees are favored greatly over others, and that it has been poaching cases that in years past would have been handled by less partisan units within the office. For this story, 4 former Department of Justice employees spoke to the Cap Times on the record with their names. Other current and former employees spoke to the Cap Times on the condition that their names not be used for fear of retribution by the department and for violating new non-disclosure agreements all employees are required to sign. The agreement implemented by Schimmel bars them from speaking about workplace issues even after they have left the department. It's a requirement no other state agency has, according to the Department of Administration. The Cap Times shared the critics' allegations with the Department of Justice, and its spokesman, Alec Hanna, disputed them all. In particular, he denied the accusation of excessive partisanship. And here's the quote. The Attorney General is exceedingly proud of the entire DOJ team, and thus it is sad that a few attorneys are anonymously trying to paint a picture that does not comport with reality. The agency has not become politicized, Crudy.
The creation of the Solicitor General's position is not necessarily a Republican enterprise. The late Democratic Attorney General, Ped Lautenschlager, who also happens to be Call's mother, first created the role here, which was a part-time position when she held office. Her successor, J.B. Van Hollen, campaigned on eliminating the position when he ran for office. He got rid of it upon taking office in 2006 to free up agency money for other things, he said at the time. Van Hollen, who now works as a lobbyist for Facebook and Motorola Solutions, did not respond to a request for comment for this story. The office today is led by Solicitor General Misha Tetzlin and includes 6 attorneys and 3 paralegals. Most of his full-time attorneys, despite prestigious academic credentials, have little trial experience or experience in Wisconsin-specific case law. A chief complaint amongst the agency critics is that the Solicitor General's office frequently poaches cases from longtime DOJ attorneys with specialized knowledge of the case, a departure of the way the department has functioned in the past. You know, when it was led competently, Dom. Warren Weinstein is one of them, a former assistant attorney general who retired in January after 31 years with the department. He said complex sexual predator cases were taken from him and given to less experienced attorneys in the Solicitor General's office. Though the cases were won, Weinstein said the emphasis on the department's win-loss record was never the focus of criminal appeals before. Now here's a quote. Of course, we do have an obligation to sustain convictions if we can, but the most important thing was the development of the law, because what we really want to do is make sure that the law is such that people who commit crimes are convicted of them, Weinstein said. We also would always want to try and clarify an area that is confusing to the prosecutors, or if there is a case that is at odds with the law. The focus on winning was especially pronounced heading into this election year. Noting colleagues shared stories with him where they were advised not to take cases they were uncertain they would win. It was common knowledge that they were concerned with portraying Brad's record in the election. Hanna confirmed that the Solicitor General's office may take cases from the attorneys in the department, but added that there have been instances where an assistant attorney general felt so strongly about keeping a case that the decision to take a case away was reversed. Those decisions are made by Deputy Attorney General Paul Connell, he said. Hanna had no apologies, kind of like Trump, for the office's winning record. It's too much winning.
So much winning. Winning.
As explained in our previous press releases, the office of the Solicitor General was undefeated last term, prevailing at every merits decision where it presented the state and its agencies as parties. Since its inception, the office of the Solicitor General's record is nearly perfect, including multiple wins at the U.S. Supreme Court. Few other AG offices in the country have established this kind of record. They're kicking ass every day over there, Dom. Hanna also pointed to Tetzlin's qualification, which include a U.S. Supreme Court clerkship with recently retired Justice Anthony Kennedy. Taxpayers should take comfort in Attorney General Schimmel designating a highly credentialed, Koch brother chosen, poached from West Virginia coal country credentialed attorney in his executive office to exercise diligent oversight over the lawyers at the DOJ, Hannah said. Now, former guest on this program, Dom Rick Essenberg, who has tracked the DOJ as executive director of the conservative Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, agreed with Hannah, of course he did, he's also a partisan, that the office of the Solicitor General has first-rate attorneys, and also in disputing the argument that the department is inordinately partisan. He added the office is good for Wisconsin, regardless of which party is in power. If there is a Democratic Attorney General, I think the SG's office should be retained for the same reasons that it was created under AG Schimmel. What, to sue Obamacare? To sue the black president? I mean, that's basically what Tetzlin has done. That has been an arm of obstruction, an arm of needless federal lawsuits against the sitting administration. Dom, that's effectively what the Solicitor General's role has been here in the state of Wisconsin. But back to the piece. The Solicitor General's office had led or joined several cases seeking to repeal federal laws, all of which have political ramifications. During Schimmel's tenure, the state supported suits to challenge the Federal Clean Air Act with Texas, the Clean Water Act with Georgia. It is leading on a federal lawsuit aimed at repealing the Affordable Care Act, which has been criticized by Democrats. The opposition to the ACA, I think, is what is meant there. The suit, if successful, could affect those with pre-existing conditions. The entire ACA should fall, Tetzlin said last month when asked by a federal judge in Fort Worth, Texas, which parts of the law should stand. They want to have it found unconstitutional in its entirety to eliminate protections for pre-existing conditions. The same Solicitor General's office at the discretion of the AG that has sued to allow pollution of the air and water, Dom. Man, they're looking out for us.
Well, hell, Crudy, we know that Leah Vukmir would sit in front of a truck before she let ACA or let pre-existing conditions be an issue here. I'll bring it home, Crudy.
Scott Walker and Brad Schimmel driving that bus that will remove the pre-existing conditions, and she, of course, by her own avocation, would want to fully repeal Obamacare.
We got some callers here. Let's get to it. Is any more meat on this bone you want to get out there besides just generally bashing?
Let me sum it up. Brad Schimmel, partisan hack, his office demoralized because of the inordinately partisan nature of how he runs it. The Solicitor General running roughshod in the state of Wisconsin, and ultimately a little loosey-goosey with the state's resources. I strongly suspect the phone he left on the bar, I bet we, the taxpayers, pay for that phone, Dom.
You know it. But it is unprecedented that so many people from within that organization do not want Brad Schimmel reelected. Folks, you should not want him reelected either.
Okay, one more quote. Green, the original former AG. There is a direct link between the poor management of the department and the low morale of the staff under Brad Schimmel.
Of course there is.
I concur.
He is a hack. He is a bum. He has no leadership qualities. He should not be an attorney general. He is nothing more than a right-wing activist. 844-967-2789. We got several callers holding. Let's get to some of them right now. Wisco Paul, you're next. Thanks for calling. Happy Hump Day. What do you got?
Hey, Paul.
Happy Hump Day to you guys. Hey, I got to get this in. Sarah's speech at the Democratic State Convention in Oshkosh. It was awesome. Everybody I was around were on their feet by the end, and it would be a shame if she loses the treasurer race. It would be sad. I hope she wins it. Hey, I feel like I was really wrong on this gas tax. All I was talking was 5-10 cents. To me, it was no big deal. 5-10 cents to get the roads fixed. I will say this. I stopped at the gas station the other day, and they got them little TV screens on there when you activate the pump, and they're talking Walker's talking. I don't know who was talking, but $1 a gallon.
Yeah, Scott Walker campaign ad lying about Tony Evers, and it's being viewed at your gas pump.
And that's nobody even mentioned that. I told somebody the other day, we have gold-plated roads, for God's sake, at $1 a gallon gas.
Right.
You know, this stuff kind of scares me, that money, total money, can persuade people in this state. If you read the paper or get any information at all, you've got to be going, hey, this Walker is just plain bad. But I don't know. I must be looking at the wrong thing, and I drive part-time. I don't have to do that either. So I guess the bottom line is old people vote, right? Is that what I'm looking at here? I don't know. Help me out, you guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, Paul, I would just say this. Money may not buy happiness, but it will certainly buy the governor of the state of Wisconsin. Scott Walker, he's bought and paid for. He is for sale. And you know who else is bought and paid for?
Who?
Brad Schimmel. And the Solicitor General of the state of Wisconsin, Misha Tetzlin. He is a mercenary for hire. He was brought in as he is basically a tool of the Koch brothers that we, the Wisconsin taxpayers, pay to turn around and sue the Obama administration for any rollbacks on pollution they can get for corporate interest. Let's call them petrochemical interest. Let's call them the Koch brothers.
Wait, how is that serving the citizens of the state of Wisconsin? All of whom we get to go vote in like 4 weeks.
Come back with us, unless you're voting. But still, you could turn on the Devil's Advocates radio show. You could join us on the phones. One last segment for your calls. 844-967-2789.
I don't have a lot of expertise.
Good heavens. Are you still trying to win?
I don't even know my own website address.
I'm not going to work here anymore anyway.
Hi, Resistance Radio listeners. This is Kim Schrader, the president of the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association. We are the 4,600 educators who make Milwaukee's public education system possible. MTA members are the guardians of public education because every single day we are fighting to strengthen and protect public schools our students deserve. MTA educators are leading the fight in Milwaukee public schools for smaller class sizes, more recess, physical education, art, and music opportunities for every child in MPS. MTA educators are the champions for healthier school meals, positive discipline practices, equitable schools, and schools that partner with parents. MTA members are the guardians of public education, and we are proud to teach all children, regardless of their zip code. To learn more, follow us on Facebook at the Milwaukee Teachers Education Association.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Tune in to Real Resistance Radio. Start your weekday off with the Earl Ingram Show from 6 to 8 a.m. Next, it's The Forum with Sherwin Hughes from 8 to 11. Then from 11 to 2, it's the Tom Hartman Program. At 2 o'clock, it's the Brian Kelly Show. Then from 3 to 6, it's the Devil's Advocates. Mandatory listening. Always streaming at realresistanceradio.com.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. Party line is open. We're going to take your calls right now at 844-967-2789. For those of you that don't know, that's 844-96-PARTY. Let's start with Pizza Box Mike, our pal from Madison. Hey, Mike, what do you got?
Well, I know our kissing ass every day Attorney General needs to be found out about. I can't believe people don't pay attention to that. He's kind of like he's our Pruitt, you know, and I don't think a whole lot of people liked him. But, these polls just drive me nuts. I'm glad to see that people realize that Nurse Ratched is not the answer, and that she wouldn't lay down in front of a truck. She'd throw the whole state under a bus, and that's what she's done since she's been here. She's in trouble, and I'm glad. And you know what? She won't be back in our Senate either. That's the best part about it. But I did get
Mike,
a great
isn't
report coming back from the
Isn't it troubling, though? I mean, I'm glad that Baldwin has a sizable lead over Nurse Ratched, over Vukmer. But how do you explain Scott Walker taking a modest edge over Tony Evers? First poll we've seen since the primary where Scott Walker was beating Evers.
It's called stealing an election, man. The first thing I said was because Scott Walker did what the last month that would move him up points. And this
ran lots of negative ads. Lots of negative ads, Mike.
I guess. And we need to turn that around, man. Even when I criticize my Republican voting friends, I try to be more positive about it. And you just keep laying out the facts for them, and you know what they do? They get kind of quiet. And that's the best thing you can do is get them to shut up and, stay home. Don't vote. Stay home, because the rest of us really care about this state. And, yet it is disturbing that she would have a 10-point lead. And even more disturbing is Brad Schimmel. I mean, what a weasel. I mean, not a weasel. That's an insult to them. I don't know what you call him, like a human grub? A human grub, that's it. Anyway, he is going to be kissing our ass the rest of his life, and if he chooses to live here. I just can't stand the guy. So if Evers wins, what's he going to do then? Is he going to challenge everything that the new governor does, or is he just going to shut up like the rest of the punks, like little Donnie Jr. needs to do? They all need to shut up and go away.
Thanks for the call, Pizza Box Mike. I like to think of him as the human centipede. Let's get some more. And Chris from Sun Prairie, you're up. Thanks for calling, Chris. What do you got today?
Hey, Chris.
Hi. Well, it's good to hear Mike sounding like he's back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was really happy you had Sarah Godlewski. Is that how you say her name? I'm not sure.
Godlewski.
Sarah
Godlewski. I don't get it.
Okay.
That's one of the few difficult names I say accurately, Chris.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But I saw her at the Fighting Bob Fest, and I just thought she was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I was really thrilled when she was talking about possibly refinancing student loans for students in the state of Wisconsin that have a lot of student loan debt and have student loan debt with some of these bad actors that have done the real predatory lending. I have 2 children that went through college and have student loans, and one of them has student loans with some of those ones that were real predatory. So if she could offer any relief there, I think that would be wonderful. But I just liked her energy, and I liked her background. I just liked everything about her. She just really seems like a great person to get in there, and it'd be really nice after having a treasurer in there who wanted to get rid of the office.
Right, someone that actually wants to utilize the job for the benefit of the citizens of the state of Wisconsin.
Chris, what about the top of the ticket polling? Scott Walker, first poll we've seen since the primary where he leads Tony Evers within the margin of error, but this has a familiar feel to it, Chris. It's got me a little bit nervous. Historical context being what it is, I'm a little nervous we're seeing a late shift towards Scott Walker.
Yeah, I'm always nervous. I mean, especially with Walker, because we've thought other times that we would win and we didn't. And I don't know, with the polling, I try to ignore it and just do whatever it is I'm going to do to try to help get the vote out. Whether it says we're winning and whether it says we're losing, I think everybody just has to go with the idea that every vote counts. Everybody needs to get out there. We need to register as many people as we can. We need to get as many people as we can to the polls. And, that's all we really can do.
Yeah.
Chris, our friend from Sun Prairie, our best to Jerry, your spouse. Thanks for calling today. Thanks for listening, as always, to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I want to thank all our fine guests today. They included Democratic candidate for State Treasurer Sarah Godlewski, and, of course, pollster extraordinaire, our good buddy Charles Franklin from the Marquette University Law School poll. Dom, I know we got another big show tomorrow. I just can't remember who.
I'm sure it's going to be fantastic.
I'm coming to town for that one. It's going to be super duper spectacular. Hell, Dom, it might be the greatest radio show ever. Kind of like this one. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good night. see you tomorrow on the radio.
I will do anything it takes to win.
Hey, what happened?
Please, it's too much.
We don't need to imagine the challenges our state faces. We live them every day. This is former State Representative Mandela Barnes. I'm running to be your next Lieutenant Governor. And whether it's more access to affordable health care, or clean water, or better jobs, or wanting the best schools for our kids, there's only one candidate for governor who will get results: Tony Evers. That's what Tony's done as a teacher, and it's